Hello, hello. I see Cosmic Bing saying, "Hey, I love your way of explaining art." Thank you so much, Cosmic Bing. Margot says, "Who am I deep down? I don't know." I don't know either. Margot. Alex says, "Hello, Canvas Man." Hello. Hello, hello. How's it going? I think I fixed chat. I think. Oh, hold on. No, I didn't. I want to make it work this time. So let me go on Streamlabs. I'll say hi to everyone once I make it work, because I really want to make it work. I want, because we're trying to do like segments of streams on the second channel, and I want you guys to be able to like see yourself on as I'm talking. Hold on a second. I'm getting better and better at this, but I still need a bit of practice. What about now? Is it gonna work? I'm gonna read Bejeweled Sledgehammer. Loving these live streams. Please keep them coming. I love doing them. I was just talking about that with Ballet before going live. Oh, there you go. I think the chat's working. What I used to do is it came in chunks, which was hard to follow when we watched it in the segments. Titlick coming back saying hi. Margarine Scotch says hello. Emily, hello. Magna, hello, art guy. I guess I'm art guy. Yeah, that's me. I don't know. The chat doesn't seem to work. All right, anyway. Bito Boucher asking, you like theater? I do. There's not that much theater where I am, but when I used to live in Montreal, I used to love watching theater. Hello, Alcy. Yov Cohen coming back. Nice to see people coming back. It means you're liking this as much as I am. George says greetings. Thank you, Hashslinger Slasher. Corn Salsa says hello. Hello. Oh, wait. All right, let's try that. Well, so many comments. Trying to catch up. Alan Shizar saying hello. I recently learned to appreciate painting and eager to find out more. Yeah, actually I'm going to make a video soon. This is a premiere, I guess. I'm going to make a video collaborating with some creators to talk about how to appreciate paintings. It's a question that I've been receiving quite a bit. How do you look at paintings? How do you analyze a painting? So I'm planning on doing that with, because there's more than one way, right? Obviously. And it's something I would like to do with some creators. If you know some creators that might be interested in sharing that, how they look at paintings, how they look at art, how they break it down, analyze it. There's also the whole idea of looking at art through YouTube or through like the idea of writing about it, which is definitely different from just appreciating it. Hello, everyone. Hello. They said a lot of people. Hold on. Hello, hello. Thank you, Charlie. That's a funny comment. Good evening. Robin Marks says, I'm new. Welcome. This is only my third stream, so you're not new. You're part of the first people to watch these streams. There's no new people here. Well, I mean, maybe you are, but we're all new. Buddha Rushi saying hello, great video. Thank you. We're gonna talk about that video. We're gonna talk about that. Margaret Scotch. Oh, sending the $5. Look at that. With even the Carl Andre and Anna Mendieta. I might be telling myself, but I don't know these people. I'll have to look it up. But I could cover them if I get the inspiration. A lot of people ask me to make videos on different artists, on different topics, and sometimes it's not that the artists or the topics aren't interesting enough to make a video on. It's just that I lack the inspiration, because it comes in inspiration. It comes in waves. Happy Sunday. Happy Monday. Mikhail Wisnowski, do you ever paint or draw yourself? I try sometimes. If I ever get good at it, I'll show you. Don't worry. I'll share it. Sheldon Cooper asking, where are you from? Quebec, Canada. Hi, Priya Mason. Game Elements. Hey, how's the artist residency going? I'll be talking about that as well. On what are the topics that, not the topics, but the things that we've done in the last 2 weeks. I've been working on that a bit. It Can Be says hi from Munich, Germany. Elizabeth Salazar, hello. Thank you for liking my videos. Don't want to see you, hello. Thank you, Michael, about my voice. That's something I was worried about when I started streaming. I was thinking, are people going to think that my voice on stream and my voice in my videos are different? The intonation is obviously different. George Moore says, how to look at painting, please cover abstract art. I don't think I've made a video on abstract art, but my position and my way of looking at abstract art has changed a lot since I started this channel, mainly through reading a book on John Berger. I will make a video on John Berger, like a proper video on him eventually. Sheldon Cooper, are we going to get a collaboration between you and Nerdwriter? I would love that. But Nerdwriter is extremely busy. He just he just published a book. Give this man a chance. But he's really nice. When I asked him an advanced reader's copy to read his book and review it on my channel, he answered right away on Instagram, and it's himself that's like talking to people on Instagram, which is amazing. And yeah, he's like, yeah, for sure. And he sent me a book, so I bought a copy of his book, and I have one that he sent me for like the review. So I have 2 copies of his book. It Can Be says scatological art is shit. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I'm reading all of your comments. People chatting between each other. I love that. That's something like the community building that I've been trying to do. Looking into making a Discord. I said that a month ago. Like a month ago to this day. That I would one day make a Discord for the community. Alex Sorensen says, I was curious on what you consider retinal art since you didn't give any examples in your video. Yeah, I can talk about retinal art. I can make a video about retinal art, but I can maybe, because I'm trying to organize my streams in segments so that I can upload on the second channel. So we can ask me that maybe when we go over the video. Hi from Italy. Hello, Sam Phillips. Kareem Dahab says, what does one mean by purpose? That's actually a really good question. I didn't even consider it when I made the video. All right, I'm gonna skip a couple of comments. All right. Yeah, I made. Robin Mark says check out Autodix. Given the world's tone at the moment, I made 3 videos on Autodix. I think back to back. It's an artist that I really admire. Yeah, I never made a video on Ellis Lowry, Henry. That's something I could definitely do as well. Hello, Dewberry. I think I recognize that name. Bejeweled Sledgehammer says the Canvas chat room definitely feels like a lovely community. I don't feel that way with many YouTubers live streams. I don't know many YouTubers live streams, to be honest. I know on Twitch there's like a really good culture of like chat community and chat interaction with the streamer. On YouTube, I think it's still developing. Alexander asking me about didactic art. Yeah, that's a good question that I might answer later. Do you like animation? Xavier Sanchez asks. Like anime? I already said that. I'm not a weeb. I'm distancing myself from weebs as much as I can. Emil says, if I draw things just for fun, like it's retinal art, hi from Brazil. It depends. It's a good conversation to have, but it's one that needs nuance for sure. that comment keeps coming back. Shreyan saying, you look like Magnus Carlsen with longer hair. Last time I had my hair tied and it was just Magnus Carlsen, and now I'm Magnus Carlsen with long hair. Bob says, art is decoration, changed my mind. That's what that's exactly what I'm trying to, that's what I'm fighting against. That's the very purpose, I guess, of my YouTube channel, is to fight against the idea that art is decoration. Mr. Mao, Jorison, great content greetings from Germany. Hello. Hey, it's probably like getting late in Europe. Maybe I should make my streams a bit earlier on Sundays, just for the Europe people. A lot of you guys are working tomorrow. All right. Yeah, Armin says, art for art's sake just means you create art that you want to make regardless of meaning. Would you consider anime retinal art? No. The style itself, I mean, it depends. I don't think a style can be necessarily retinal. It's what you do with the style. Though anime, like when people draw cool characters for the sake of drawing cool characters, I would call it retinal art if there's nothing beyond that, you know, engaging. If there's not more engagement than, hey, look at this cool character. It doesn't mean it's like saying that it's retinal art doesn't mean that it's worthless, you know. It's just, it has a different purpose, I guess. A weirdo say, hey, I was wondering if being an illustrator would be a good career path, and if so, if there is any advice I should take. That's actually, it might be a hot take from me on careers in general. We can talk about that definitely later. And India is getting pretty, yeah, it's pretty late, I imagine. Yeah, 10:15 in Germany. Hello from Romania. 11 p.m. Slovakia is 10. How do you judge how much engagement is enough? Yes, asks Yoav. That's a really good question, and I don't think you can really judge how much engagement there is, because it'll depend on the viewer, right? I don't think it's how much engagement there is, but if there's even possibility for engagement, because someone can engage very, very much with I don't know, Guernica by Picasso, you know, because through their understanding of 1936 war, or even just from their understanding of pain and suffering and war and all that. But like, you can also imagine someone who sees Guernica and doesn't care at all, right? So engagement is also contingent on the viewer. So I guess it's subjective in a way, but there's some paintings that I think, some art that just can be engaged with, but like on a very surface level, if they can be engaged with at all. All right, so many comments. I'm gonna have to ignore you guys. I just wanted to maybe like update on this last 2 weeks, talk to you about what we did, aside from the video, of course, that we'll discuss later. For the artist residency, the last 2 weeks, what we did is we actually finished painting the art gallery. So that's done, which is extremely exciting. And I already have an idea for the first exhibition in that art gallery, and I can't wait to show. I'll make a video not only about building the art gallery, but also doing the first exhibition, because it has like a concept to it that I think is very interesting to or very relevant to the conversations we have on the canvas. And it's going to be a really fun video to make, and it's going to be something that I can't wait to share. Also, another thing I've been doing is reading this book, The Meaning of Art by Herbert Reed, that Ballet actually bought me. And what's interesting about The Meaning of Art is that, well, about Herbert Reed, who's a figure that I just started being interested in. Not that I ignored him before, but it's just that I never came across his writings or like actually delved into it. But he's an anarchist, which is really, really cool, because I'm an anarchist. And he's an art critic, which is really, really cool, because like, not an art critic, but like, I'm as close as an art critic as you can get on YouTube, I guess, right? So it's something I've been delving into, and maybe one day I'll make a video on Herbert Reed, on his philosophy, and on the intersection between anarchism and art criticism and art in general. And he does talk about the purpose of art, and intersecting with politics and all that. Fascinating read that I'm doing right now. I just started, and I might use that book as well in later videos. Another thing I've been doing is, and that's that's something I've been wanting to do on stream, because we did it. All right. All right, so what I wanted to do is show you my second channel, which is right here. And we were at 950 subscribers, and I was like, or 980 when I started the stream, or earlier this today, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna push this to 1K. It's already at 1K. But yeah, if we've been publishing some videos, some segments of last week's stream, so we'll be doing that again from this stream. We'll be uploading segments about what we decide to talk about, and it's like it's not getting that many views, and it's not that many subscribers, but it's so much fun to do. I'm not regretting it at all. It's like a passion project. These live streams are also a passion project. Oh, hey, Garish Grackle. Hello, Natai. I answered your email, Natai. I don't know if you saw. I'm sorry for taking it so long. And Andy Mai, when did you become an anarchist? I think it was like 2016 or 17, around those years. So yeah, and there's also a video right here. Oh, you're seeing who I'm subscribed to. There's also this video here. What is anarcha-feminism? Which is an anarchist FAQ. That's my third channel. You can also you can also subscribe to that one. Anarcha-feminism is it's one of the longer videos, because I'm basically what an anarchist FAQ is it's already a very, very incredible resource on anarchism, but I'm narrating it just for fun, and also because it forces me to really not learn them by heart, but almost by narrating through them and reading them out loud. And what is anarcha-feminism, which is like almost 30 minutes, is an incredible segment of this project of anarchist FAQ. I think it was Ballet's favorite chapter so far, and no, I find it like a fascinating one. Not only does it talk about how anarchism influenced feminism, but how feminism influenced anarchism and the intersection between the two. It talks about liberal feminism, or the idea, that like it was written in 1992, I think, like before I was even born, and it mentions like the kind of feminism that would say, well, if there's more women in positions of power, like more women CEOs, that means women's emancipation or women's liberation, which is like that they criticize that, which is very good for like the 90s. And it's often like the whole idea of, women are not emancipated if they live the same kind of oppressive, like within the same oppressive system as men, which is capitalism. So it's an amazing segment, I would say, of the anarchist FAQ. They also talk about the feminization of society. I don't know how serious they were in that, but like the idea of feminization of society is like the values we associate more with femininity, like, which is like solidarity, like caring and stuff like that, should be prioritized over the manly type of I can put it back to my face, the manly type of values, which is more like self-sufficiency and competition, basically competition versus cooperation. Anyway, amazing little segment that I recommend to all. You can also read it if you want. Natai says the Squid Game video is fantastic, by the way. Are you planning to do more like that on Germinal too? That's actually a really good question. On Germinal, there's this video I did on Squid Game, which thinking back on it, I think I should have done more on the canvas. I was afraid of doing it on the canvas because it's more anti-capitalist. But now thinking about it, I would have done it on the canvas just because it would have more reach, and I think it was a really fantastic video that didn't get the love it deserved on Germinal, I think. And it also features ballet, which is a rare occurrence in the canvas extended universe, I guess. But I'm happy you liked it, and like I would upload it on the canvas now, but the Squid Game is long gone in terms of relevancy. Yeah, the chat is broken. I don't know why. All right. I think that's what we did this week. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, I'm writing on the next script for next video, which may or may not be next Sunday. So that means next Sunday we might do video, not only a video but also a live stream. I would love to do a live stream every week because I'm really enjoying these, and it's a lot of fun. So we'll see, depending on how much work and I still need to put on the residency and all that on different projects. So yeah, let's talk about the video. Let's talk about, does art need purpose? Well, first, I feel like it was a different video because it wasn't necessarily on on an artist or anything. I tried to bring in Whistler because that was fun and it was a good way to, like, you know, introduce an artist and their art. Elsie says, are applications for the residency still open? They are, but we're currently like reworking how the residency is going to work, just because it's there's been different kinds of needs, not only in the community but from artists themselves. I'm trying to see how we can best fit the building to those needs, because I want to also like follow the needs of the community. By community, I mean mostly like artists. It's the region I'm in is not like the most it's not the richest region in Quebec. It's actually one of the poorest, and artists from here don't necessarily have the space, or not only to produce their art, but to expose it. I would like to use the space for their sake as well, because it's still like, it's a building that I want to give to artists, and international artists is like great, and I want to be able to give this community the experience of having international artists, but also the community itself. I want them to benefit from the space as well, because the building belongs to the community as well. Just, yeah. So I'm looking over that just because of that. But yeah, no, we're still getting artists. It's just that we're getting the space ready, and once it's ready, we'll have to see what the needs of the communities are. But I'm for sure having artists from the international. I think that's really important. But yeah, no, let's go back to, does art need purpose? I love how, because I went over the comments, and it's like super long comments. Sometimes I don't read them all. I mean, I can't read them all, and sometimes they're very, very long comments, so I can't read them completely. But it's interesting because many people were saying that the topic is more complex than how it's presented, and some people are saying that it's not as complex, it's more simple than what is presented. And I find that interesting. And a lot of people, maybe without like necessarily wanting or even caring about it, like disagreed with my take, which is really, really amazing, because I think it's great that there are so many comments that disagree with me or my vision on art, but still follow the channel, which is, you know, it's a good thing. And it means that just by that virtue, I can challenge maybe their notions on art, and I'm having my notions on art challenged as well, right? A lot of people disagreed with the idea that art for the sake of art is purposeless, or that, you know, that art for the sake of art is a purpose in itself, so it's not necessarily purposeless. And that's something I personally like disagree with. It's a conversation. I think it's a conversation that's better done through a conversation than on a video essay, like the video essay form. That's one of the limitations of the video essay form. I think it's hard to have a conversation, so I'm just putting the idea out there. Robin says, oh, I figured out the on purpose thing. If I want to express an idea, I create a work. If I just want to relax, I do paint by numbers. I think that's a good way to put it, or at least how I see it as well. If you want to relax, you don't necessarily have to do paint by numbers, but you can do paintings just for fun, and without necessarily expressing an idea or expressing an emotion or expressing whatever. And I feel like that's the kind of purposeless art I'm talking about. And because of that, I don't think that's necessarily art that is, well, I don't think that those are images that necessarily become art because of that. That's my notion of art personally. So yeah, likening it to a paint by numbers is good in that case, because I do think that art needs to express an idea or like an experience or something, and an aesthetic experience, at least to me, is not enough. Like my standards for art are a bit higher than that. An aesthetic experience can be relaxing and can be great, but why can't purpose come from the inside? Why are we supposed to think that the purpose of art can only be external of oneself? I think it can come from the inside, like an experience, for example. You know, if you experience even like alienation, or if you experience isolation or loneliness, that's the kind of experience that comes from the inside. Though it does have like external causes, it comes from the inside, and you can express or that idea or those feelings in a way that, you know, gives your art purpose. But if your art is solely, you know, for aesthetic reasons, just for, you know, you're just making art because, oh, I like making art, and it's not expressing those deeply human emotions that come from the inside, then yeah, I would. Elsie says, I found with a lot of my artworks that they end up finding their purpose / meaning after I made / designed / worked on them, which is interesting. That is interesting, and it's a theory of art that I want to explore more, and maybe make a video on to explore it. And it's the idea that like art is very like often comes from like the viewer or the people who criticize it. And people who criticize it from their own experiences, or interpret it from their own experiences, right? And I feel like the fact that if you see a work of art through through its criticism in a way, or it makes it alive. It keeps it alive. For example, when you criticize, like you just look at a work of art, like let's say Michelangelo's like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, right? The creation of Adam. But by engaging with that painting, maybe in a more contemporary way, I did a video on that, like on engaging with it as like, oh, what if it's God? What if Adam created God, and that's the creation of Adam, as it, like the same way like the video I just made is the creation of the canvas, or creation of Sean. Well, God is the creation of Adam, and some people were angry at me for that. But I think that through different angles at which you're attacking a painting, through your own personal visions of the world and all that, you're keeping paintings alive, or like works of art alive, and the purpose can change that way. I think so. Thank you, Michael, saying I can create conversations with the videos. That's what I try to do. That's what I try. I try to make like spark conversations, or spark like, you know, at least internal conversations. And again, in the comments, and I see that often, people talk about how, you know, I can't like put in like give my opinion on an artwork, because it feels like it ends the conversation in a way, because I'm closing off the conversation that I kind of present in the video by telling my opinion and telling like, all right, this is the right perspective. But I don't think that's necessarily like, perhaps I should say, oh, this is my opinion, by the way. But I feel like, especially when it comes from YouTubers, it's always their opinion, right? Like whatever fact they say, very often, maybe not always, but very often, it's their opinion. And I hate when people say, oh, it's just my opinion, don't attack me. Like I'm stating this, but this is just my opinion. It's like, yeah, we know. You don't need to say it. Let's just assume that what people say is their opinion. It's their opinion. Let's stay skeptical of what they say. Stay skeptical of what I say. I heard that the meaning of art is to enhance life. It's a quote from someone I don't remember. Yeah, well, enhancing life is very broad. We have to that's another conversation right there. All right, I'm skipping a couple of chats. Natai says, I think it can be helpful to think of art as communication. Yeah, exactly. You can create a well-constructed sentence, but that sentence will not always be meaningful. Yeah. Well, yeah, like I think of it in terms of communication as well. And but at the same time, you can communicate a sense of just pure beauty or aesthetic, like the people from the aesthetic movement. And I would call it not art. Though it is communication. I'm communicating my sense of beauty, my sense of the aesthetic. So many good questions. Yeah, it can be says you can title a blank canvas with a purposeful title, rendering it important. Absolutely. I don't know if you agree with that sentence or if you're criticizing it, but I do agree with that, because the idea is engaging with that blank canvas through the title. If there's no title, it might be harder to engage with, even though some people might, but I don't think it would be necessarily engaging. But with a purposeful title, I think it can spark conversations, and it can create a dialogue between the viewer and the art, or between the viewer and another viewer that's also looking at the art. That's the kind of purpose I think is important. And I think that the blank canvas can have more purpose through its title, for example, than a purely aesthetic painting that won't spark a conversation, or won't spark like a reaction from the viewer. And I think when it comes to art, we have to have those standards of like looking at art through the idea of having that kind of engagement. Alec Lindqvist, going back to AI art, the famous or the infamous controversial topic. How do you think AI art fits into the discussion of purpose in art? Is it harder to connect the purpose to the art when the artist is no longer the creator? I think the artist is always the creator. Like AI can create images, even if it's random, even without a prompt. Maybe if it does create an image, like if it doesn't have like the conceptualization or the communication of an idea, or I don't know, of an experience or whatever, I think it's just creating an image and not art. And I think the purpose of art can only be communicated by like a human. And that's an interesting thing. Now I'm thinking about it. It's like I would also like something like, not because an image has purpose that it's necessarily art either. Right? The Coca-Cola logo is its purpose is to, I don't know, get customers or whatever, or create like a brand and have brand recognition through that logo. And that logo is an image, and it serves a very clear purpose. But I wouldn't go as far as calling it art, unless you recontextualize it to underline the symbol that Coca-Cola like created. But like in itself, I don't think it's art, even though it's an image that has purpose. Yoav says, I think even nature, when conceptualized and contextualized as art, is art. And I agree. Yeah. The conceptualization, contextualization is extremely important. And nature can be contextualized and conceptualized. Anything can be contextualized and conceptualized. Nature, it can be a urinal, it can be an AI image, And that's when it becomes art. I I'm trying to catch up on chats. I'm gonna be skipping so many interesting and insightful comments. I apologize for that. It Can Be says, doesn't the human condition rival political issues that are constantly changing? I think political issues are part of the human condition. So many comments. I'm so sorry. Reserve Podcast says, I think the word purpose and deeper meaning are a different thing. Also, all art has a meaning. Its meaning is to be. Now, does it have to have a deeper meaning? Not at all. I disagree. Well, of course, if you watch the video, you know I disagree with that. I think all art does have a meaning if it goes back on itself. That means like everything has a meaning, right? Like nothing like has like. I think if you just try to make art for the sake of making art, or just to relax or anything, like it does have meaning in the sense that, you know, its meaning or its purpose is to like relax you, right? But I don't think that it serves or at least doesn't. I don't think it necessarily becomes art just because it has meaning. Like I was saying earlier. But again, that's my opinion or whatever, right? I think the problem with the definition of art and like what purpose it requires and everything is that a lot of people try to make it as inclusive as possible, which is what people in the comments have tried to do. But the dangers of trying to make art as inclusive as possible is that you dilute the meaning of art to a point where it becomes almost meaningless, I believe, or it becomes harmful to the idea of art. And that's something I've talked about earlier, like before in other streams, as if I had two other streams. But the idea that anything can be art makes it so that people become alienated from art. If art can be anything and anything can be art, then people don't have this interest for art anymore, or are not that. I guess they're not fascinated by art anymore, because art can be anything. Like I can make art. My 5-year-old daughter can make art, as you've heard before, right? Because anything can be art. And the whole idea of my channel is to show that there is deeper meaning to art. There's historical context. There's ideas that are being communicated. There's experiences being communicated. There's emotions being communicated. And to appreciate those, you need to do a bit of research. You need to dig into the painting. And it's by digging into art that you can appreciate it. And the idea that any art or anything can be art, and any art can be anything, that concept makes it so that people feel like, or I think it discourages people from digging deeper, right? Because anything can be art, and therefore you don't need to think, or you don't need to actually have something engaging to make art. So it makes people disengage from art, and I think we need engaging art, and I feel that need for engaging art makes it so that I feel like our definition of art needs to be has to do something with engagement. At least that's my theory, or what I advocate for. I think like art, or the definitions of art can change throughout history. And I think we're at a point where we need engaging art, because art has been so democratized and so freed that we need to like kind of restrain it a bit. not to discredit what isn't engaging, what isn't art to me, but to elevate what is art and like create this engagement. That's my opinion. Again, it's just my opinion. You can disagree, obviously. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't like the rigidity of what art is, and Lisette is one of those people, and I understand that the history of people who have been rigid about what art is, or have been restricting of what art is, has been a really really bad history, because often when something is not art, they try to denigrate it. We can think of the degenerate art exhibition, or the Intaktete Kunst exhibition. That was, and I'm laughing because I'm saying it in German. I don't know. I love saying it in German, not because it's a funny event, because Nazis did that. But Nazis determined what is art and what isn't, and what wasn't art to them, they made fun of it. They were deriding it, and they were hating on it, right? And that's not what I like. And the history of saying that things are not art has been riddled with that, and that's not what I want to do. I just want to, like, instead of putting down what I don't think is art, I want to put up what I think is art, and like put it up in a pedestal. Yeah, maybe all can be art, but there are levels to it. Like artists, singers, dancers. There's bad art and there's better art. Yeah, that's true. That's true for sure. Um, but I do think we can, like, I don't know, we can narrow the definition a bit. Too many people show art that is so uninteresting and so devoid of creativity that, like, calling it art is making a disservice to art, or to the public perception of it, to a point where it's so, and now that people a lot of people call themselves artists and do art, and I don't know, I feel like it might come to the disadvantage of our perception of art. Sheldon Cooper asks, what is the purpose of art? Art can have different purposes, I think. um, but I think it's in communicating deeply human ideas, experiences, or whatever. Communicating, I'll call it ideas, but ideas in a broader sense that people can engage with. Um, going beyond just showing pleasing beauty, showing aestheticism, showing a cool picture. That's an interesting, like, yeah, Reserve Podcast is making an incredible point that I do agree with. Reserve Podcast says, I think that music begs this question a lot because of genres like trap, sampling, and jazz, music which inherently have no meaning other than making enjoyable things, yet they are still music. Yes, they're still music, but I don't think that all of them are necessarily, we'd categorize them as art. But that is a very uh, interesting conversation to have, because also our definitions of art change through time, and something enjoyable enough now to make it art, and that's what I'm trying to criticize. And I do think that, like, I can't tell for trap and sampling because I'm not into trap or sampling, but jazz for certain has is not just like necessarily like enjoying Jazz can be about, can be about, again, deeply human emotions communicated through through rhythm, we'll say, right? And I think that like jazz, when it, like, especially music that doesn't have necessarily lyrics to communicate ideas or whatever, and jazz is an example of being able to communicate emotions without uh without lyrics. And I think like experimental, and I'm sure trap and sampling can have that as well, but experimental jazz um can also have like an artistic process to it. um I'll give an example. Like there's I don't know if it's trap, but anyway, like there's a mumbling artist, mumble rapper in Quebec where I live. He speaks French, so you guys probably don't know him, but his name is Fouki, and this guy is won a writing award from Radio Canada, which is like CBC, or like the equivalent of the BBC in Canada. And the reason why he's a mumble rapper and got an award for his lyrics. And the reason for it is not because he writes incredible lyrics. He doesn't, at least not to me. But what he does is he chooses his lyrics according to the sound that they make. And that process of writing, which is like, it's new. It's interesting. I don't know if it's engaging, but it is worthy of like of attention, at least, right? I don't know. I still have to think about that. It might be contradictory, but I feel like there's ways to use language in a different way, like the same way there's ways of using music and rhythm in different ways and different engaging ways. All right, now after this long tangent, I need to catch up. Oh, hi, Paige. Paige is back and asks me if I'm familiar with Susan Sontag's Camp versus Kitsch. I'm not, but just because I really like your comments in my chat, I will read it. I'll read it just for you. Thank you. Thank you, Paige. Elsie says, thinking of jazz, a lot of the purpose of some jazz is to make point about music rather than the broader world. A fake. I don't know what that means. Is art whose purpose is inwards rather than outwards lesser in your view? I don't think it's lesser. I think it's still a conversation, like an interesting conversation to have. I think, for example, Marcel, like I keep going back to Marcel Duchamp's Urinal, right? With his the fountain. He presents a urinal as art, and that's a commentary on art itself. On visual arts, I should say, because art is very broad, but on visual arts itself. And I think that it's super engaging, and there's no better way of making commentary of visual art than by doing it through visual art. There's great ways of doing commentary on cinema through cinema, and you've seen it happen all the time. And same thing for jazz. There's no better way of commenting on music than through music. And I think that's like it's a great tool to comment on the medium, right? Charlie Hartrich says or asks, is art personal or selfless? I think that's a good question. I think it's personal. Well, I'm going to tie in anarchism in here. Watch me tie in anarchism to everything, because I'm a ideologue. Art is personal or selfless. I don't think there's a distinction between the two. I think individual and collectivity is so linked together that, when you make art that's deeply personal, it can reflect for a lot of people. Um, I don't think it's. I think it's like almost impossible to make selfless art. Or if you try to make art that without your individuality in it, I feel like you might just do corporate art or something. I think there's the personal and the collective are deeply deeply meshed together. So I don't think there's this duality. I think they're actually very complementary. Collectivity is made of individuals, and individuals are made possible through community, I guess. Web Madman, going back on jazz, says jazz can be emotional, an emotional conversation between the musicians. It's the dynamics between the elements rhythmically, yes, but also tone, texture as well. I don't think I could necessarily point out the dynamics between the elements rhythmically and also tonally, texturally, and all that. But when I was in college, I made a lot of friends who were in a program called in a jazz program, and that's where I really discovered jazz, which I fell in love with, and it was only through illicit substances that I was able to appreciate jazz in a way where I was understanding that different musicians were having conversations among themselves, which is not something I necessarily thought of before. Like I was just enjoying music, but then I understood that, like, especially through like solos and between every like they look at each other like in jam sessions, and it's a conversation but like not through gestures, not through words, but through like music, through rhythm or tone and texture, according to Web Madman. But that's amazing. There's a deeply human like connection in the band that you can witness through jazz, which is fascinating, and it's touching, really, to look at a jazz jam, I guess. And once you understand that it's a conversation between the people, that's when you can really appreciate it. A conversation through music. It's remarkable. So many comments. Thank you so much, everybody, for and I'm so sorry if I skip on it. I know a lot of streamers just like to ramble, but I really want to engage, and I feel bad when I'm not engaging. But it's Henrietta says, Immanuel Kant says, only beautiful art can be called art. And I asked this YouTube channel, and I will put them on here because I love what they do, and they're underappreciated, and I want you to subscribe to them. It's Amal Siendi. You probably know them. And I sent him the video in advance because I believe he's much more versed in the theory of art than I am. Yeah, no, he doesn't make that many videos, but they're worth it. I love them, and it's showing that I'm not watching them, but it's because I watch them on another channel, on my main channel. Right? I have many channels, but they're amazing. They're great videos, and and he also brought up Kant. I'm saying that because you brought up Kant, and what my answer to that would be that art definitions need to change with the times. I think at a time it might have been solely beauty, but with beauty oversaturating us in terms of images, in terms of all this I don't know, all this calculated commercial media that is super beautiful, but the ideas there's either no ideas, or the ideas are trying to sell us stuff. Most of the images that we watch are like, you know, are trying to sell us stuff, and it's not necessarily ideas. Selling ideas, I think, is fine. I think that's what I advocate for, right? But it's often selling. You know, it's like it falls into like the like consumerism, and I feel like and I feel like yeah, because of that, because of this new context, we need to change our vision of what art is. And I think AI art prompted this in a way. That's what I was trying to say in my video on AI art. Not prompted this, but accelerated our need to reimagine what art has to be for us to best engage with art. You know what? I love these comments, but they're like very long. So if I want to, and I'm not a fast reader. I'm not a fast reader, so it's I'll try to like keep up, but then I know that if I have to read like 8 lines, I'm gonna have to take a break, which is not necessarily great for streams. All right, I found the Immanuel Kant said. Yeah, Paige McLaughlin says yes, but historically artists depended on patronage of the church or wealth patrons, and lately the market. Yeah, there's always patronage, and it's going to affect what people do. I'm reading Paige. You probably know him, and you probably can tell me about him. Herbert Reed. I showed it at the beginning of the stream. Herbert Reed, and he made this one essay that I'm going to read after this one. I'm trying to get into Herbert Reed. He wrote one that says, an essay that says, "To hell with culture." And from what I understand is it's a criticism, from what I heard, because I haven't read it, I haven't even glanced at it. It's a criticism of culture in terms of like, of how it's shaped by capitalism. At least that I'll need to read it. Gnome's Child, the debased, says, "Have you ever considered talking about sculpture? I know you're the canvas, but it would still be cool." I would love to talk about sculptures. I just feel like talking about sculptures, or at least making video essays about sculptures, is not as compelling, or I'm not as inspired by it, because sculptures are 3D, and like video is arguably a 2D medium. And I like showing a painting or showing, but like if I'm going to show a 3D image or like a sculpture, I probably have to show a video of it, because just a picture of a sculpture I find is very boring and flat. So it's more in terms of making the video essay. AM or PM Time says, "What do you think of stand-up comedy as an art form?" I think that's that's an interesting, yeah, that's an interesting, I never viewed it as an art form, but I can definitely see it as an art form, for sure. Like a sort of oratory art form. Like as I'm doing like the Canvas videos, I think that sometimes the videos are in themselves a sort of art form, in the sense that they communicate, and they, I'm trying to, just the fact that you're writing an essay, you have the art form of writing, and there's visual communication, and I don't know if that's necessarily art. I don't know if I would call it art, but a stand-up comedian also has those elements, right? Of using not only writing, but there's also a performance added to it, and not only a performance, but there's the whole humor that's being used as a tool in the stand-up comedy. So I think uh, just by talking about it and by rambling about it. I do think it's art. I think stand-up comedy can be art. How it's used, though, can be. I guess it depends on how it's used. But even bad stand-up comedy can be art. Um, yeah, it's art. I guess it depends on art. Also, it's like, what are you using to make people laugh? I think that can be like social commentary through comedy, through some stand-up comedy is super interesting. But I know in Quebec, the older generations of stand-up comedy is my wife, and it's oh my, is it my what's the my ball chain of a wife or my bitch of a wife, and it's often relationships, which is also a social commentary in a way, but I don't think it's that incisive. Oh, VTP says, "Am I too late to talk about art needing meaning?" No, we're in that conversation right now. I'm trying to catch up with all the messages, but yeah, I'm happy to see that there's a lot of engagement for that topic, and I'm trying to keep up. Yeah, Robin Marks. I think we agree on a lot of things from what I see on your comments, and he just, or they put it as really beautifully. Like, when I'm writing calligraphy, I'm not doing art. When I'm writing a poem and doing it a la calligraphy, I'm being an artist, and I like that. I think there might be an argument. Like, I don't know enough about calligraphy to know to argue if calligraphy is art or not. But um, yeah, I can see how it's not art. Anyway, it's a lot of conversations to be had. All right, I'm gonna I'm gonna skip the comments. Yeah, I can be saying stand up could be a type of performance art. Absolutely. Jean-Philippe Compagne says art can be just emotions, not only representing shapes or figurative. Yeah, I think it needs to be more than just representing shapes or figurative. That's like the conversation about what art should be, at least in the 21st century. That's my my opinion. Oh shit, we have Obama's elf in chat. The elf says, "I think art does need a purpose, but that can be anything. But almost anything is enough. One can make something just as an exploration of shapes or as an opportunity to experiment. In the end, a conscious purpose helps give a direction, but an unconscious drive will always guide a piece's outcome." I I'm not sure about that. Like, just an exploration of shapes as an opportunity to experiment or anything. I mean, it can be art if it's presented and conceptualized in an engaging way, I guess, or in a compelling way, in a way that's going to make people engage with the work. But if it's just an exploration of shapes without context, without the conceptualization, I feel like we must have a higher expectation for art than that. I don't know if Obama's elf was there earlier, but like, yeah, we were talking about how having, saying that art can be anything, and yeah, it does need a purpose, but that purpose can be anything. The problem with that is that if most things can become art without necessarily the engagement necessary to make art, then we're gonna create an art that is meaningless, because it can be anything. That's what I'm afraid of, and I feel like that's, like, we have one of the most educated population in the history of humanity, and many of them, like, we have like literacy rates that are higher than probably any time in history. but I feel like art or art literacy is ashamedly low, and or shamingly low, I guess. But the reasons for that, I think, is because a lot of people are don't get art, aside from the whole point that is it can be anything. And because it can be anything, then it's hard to engage with it when you don't know art. Yeah, Tolstoy says the medieval theory of art knew about the artes mécaniques. These are the useful arts like calligraphy or types of architecture, and yeah, a lot of art in the medieval times were also about religious propaganda, like very useful, very there's also always like a very strong use, like they were like craftsmen basically. That's why most artists back then didn't sign their artworks, because it wasn't like the artist himself wasn't seen as something as important as like what they were doing, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess that idea is very common. The idea that medieval artists didn't sign just because the status of artists was just very different. They were just people, just like someone who would make like just like any crafter basically. And I feel like that goes to show the different types of art that have been out, like that have been throughout history, right? And how this should give us the liberty to redefine art to what we want it to be. I know a lot of people want it to be super inclusive, um, and my take is to say that that might be more harmful and do more harm than good. Yeah, Bixbit Bungo says sometimes art for the sole purpose of looking good is art in itself in terms of aesthetics. Yeah, but like my argument is that that's not enough. Um, and we can talk about what is what makes art art, and what purpose, what kind of purpose is needed to make something art. But I think aesthetics is not it. Just looking beautiful is, mm, I don't know. Like let's say when a musician plays a song for the 100th time, and they do it repetitively, right? Like they call them gig musicians. So musicians that don't necessarily write their songs, they don't even do twists in performing it. They perform it the same way all the time. And you can imagine like on a cruise ship, for example, or whatever, and they do gigs, and they play the same song. Let's say it's Fly Me to the Moon," right? And they sing it and they perform it for the 100th time with no variations, and it's beautiful, but is it art, right? Like it's aesthetically pleasing, at least to the ear, but is it art? Like what is it doing? You're you're performing a piece, but like, are you doing art? And what I would say, a lot of people would say yes, that's art, but I would say, like, if we call that art, it might do more harm than good, in the sense that we're not making art special. And I think we should, through our definition, make art special. Tolstoy says nature can be beautiful, but it's not art in the sense of the artificial. Heidegger says that art is. I'm not going to read that. Says the idea is transformed into the material. Gabrielle with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. 2 of them. There's two things you can pursue for the sake of art of itself: truth and beauty. So would art be the end product for the sake of truth, and crafts, as Robin said, for the sake of beauty? Yeah, crafts for the sake of beauty. Yeah, then I agree to separate the two. Yeah. However, I still understand art as a process and not the end product. Continue comme ça. J'adore écouter des vidéos. Merci, Gabriel. Right? I can probably tell. I think I know who you are from your profile picture, which is really great to see you here. Thank you. And yeah, I do think that art as craftsmanship does play into this whole conversation. And I haven't used it. I haven't talked about it. But yes, absolutely. Because craftsmanship is not necessarily a bad thing. The craftsmanship in terms of building something, right? For the sake of it being beautiful. Like someone making a really nice table by hand, right? And making it to make a nice, beautiful table. Would we call that art? Right? And I do think that we shouldn't call it we shouldn't call it art, not because it's not beautiful, not because it's worthless, but because it's not that engaging. It's not like seeking truth, as Gabriel says. It's not confronting you with ideas or experiences or whatever. It's still beautiful, and it serves like a purpose. It's a table, but it's also a nice table. But and it's also serving the purpose of being beautiful and of conveying like an aesthetically pleasing feeling, right? But I think that would be craft. That would be craft more than like art. And I think that a lot of paintings or images and things of that sorts are crafts more than art. And one is not higher than the other. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that's just aesthetically pleasing, that's relaxing, that doesn't confront you, I think that crafts can be important. Can be interesting to look into. Like one of the examples I give often is landscape paintings. I think those are like, and some of them require a lot of craftsmanship. They require a lot of skill, or any art that faithfully depicts the world in a very accurate way, but doesn't say much about it. I think that takes a lot of craftsmanship, but I don't think it's necessarily art. And I think that this separation does contribute a lot to the conversation. Thank you, Gabriel. And I know it's a hot topic. It's a hot take as well, because a lot of people don't like gatekeeping art, and it's true. Like I understand that it has a really bad history. Gatekeeping art has a bad history, but for the sake of making art appreciated, I think we need to make it special. Vea says, what do you think of Francis Bacon? I'm working right now. Right before this video, I was writing on Francis Bacon. Hopefully I can publish that video on Sunday, so I can stream on Sunday again. It might be a shorter video, but yeah, someone else asked me to make a video on Francis Bacon earlier. So that's something I might, earlier, I mean last stream, so it's something I might do. So many messages. Yeah, Obama's elf says we should expand our appreciation of it. I think the definition of art should include bad art, since not doing so will lead us to judging something by it being art before actually leaving letting it have a meaning. I agree that it should have bad art in its the definition should include bad art. But what is bad art? That's another thing, right? Like, we have to determine what is the purpose of art first. And if bad art is the idea that this artwork doesn't fulfill that purpose, then is it art if it's not fulfilling the main purpose it's trying to serve, right? Like, I'll give you an analogy. I'm not sure if it's a good one, but let's say you have medicine that is supposed to cure, I don't know, an illness, right? But it's bad medicine because it's not curing the illness. Well, is it medicine in the first place, right? But I think like discrediting a work of art because it's bad is not a good thing. The line is blurry. It's a really another good conversation to have. Oh, I won't be able to sleep tonight. I'll be having so many questions in my head about that. Parts of me is like, is it even worth it? Is it even worth it having all these conversations? And someone asked about retinal art earlier, and I'll make a video about that. I don't think I want to expand on that today, but I will make a video on retinal art. I think it's such an important subject to cover, at least for me. Total Sale says, if the function of art is nothing material, then types of art that try to enforce the material are bad. For example, moralizing art. I don't think I have a gripe against moralizing art or that kind of if the function of art is nothing material. I do think it's material though. I don't think it should enforce the material, but I think it should definitely have a conversation about the material. And I think moralizing art does, like, I don't think, for example, moralizing art or art that tells you how to behave or whatever, or like, which, like, you know, what, like giving you a moral dictate or whatever. I think that kind of art is important and engaging if the viewer, instead of, you know, just taking it for granted, can engage with it and criticize it and can talk about it with others. Max Andor says, I guess the purpose of art is to make you ask about it, yourself and the environment around you, or the piece. Something that doesn't fulfill that, it isn't art, just a thing made with another purpose. Yeah, if I understand correctly, I think you're sorry. I guess the purpose of art is to make you ask about it, yourself and the environment around you, or the piece. I think what you're talking about, or at least what you're expressing here, is like engagement, which is what my definition of engagement. You know, ask about it, or ask about yourself, ask about your environment around you. You drink out of a jar, says Magna. Yeah, it's I don't have glasses. I can't make a glass of water. I can make a jar of water. Like, jars are very, very useful. You can put anything you want in them, and then you can close them. So let's say you have like 20 jars. You can do whatever you want with those jars. Why would you have glasses when you can drink out of a jar that can have all the other purposes or other utilities? I think glasses are a waste of time when you can drink from things that are useful. That's what purpose is. That's what usefulness, meaning is. This serves greater purpose than a glass, and that's why I drink out of this. Spilled Salt 486 says, do you have a least favorite or most overrated artist? It might be a bad question. It's not a bad question. I don't like Monet. I don't like Monet. People love Monet. And Monet did, was very influential. And for the time, Monet was important. Still is today, but when I talk about retinal art, people love Monet, okay? But when I talk about retinal art, his lilies. I tried to make a video on his lilies once. All right, I'll show for the people who don't know who Monet is. All right, Monet lilies. Is that how you write lilies? Yes, I didn't embarrass myself. I tried to make a video on his lilies once. What do you say about this? That it's beautiful? Yeah, it is beautiful. That, his process is revolutionary? Yeah, it was revolutionary for the time. Like, I do like it in the sense that it's beautiful, but holy shit, how do I engage with this? What does it say about the world? What does it say about Monet, aside from the fact that he liked lilies and he had the privilege of being able to spend his life painting them? I don't know. That's my hot take. Gnome's Child says Monet is kind of an asshole. If you look into like biographies, who wasn't? I mean, I think it's like it might be an artist thing, but also might be a French thing, especially a Parisian thing from the 19th century. Paige says World War I was a big part of his water lilies. I might have to look into that. And if it is, and if the interpretation brings engagement with World War I and like brings engagement with the water lilies, in that case, I'll take it back. And I do think a lot of art does need this engagement. And I've tried to engage with this, and I haven't tried, and it's might not be even Monet's fault. It might be the fact that so many art information online just emphasizes on how beautiful they are and nothing more. Or maybe I didn't do a good job at researching. But I can go back on that and say, oh yeah, it is actually engaging when I think of it that way. And I think the fact that engagement with works of art are so contingent on their interpretation makes me go back to like my theory that I'll try to look into it more. The theory that, what makes art is more the interpretation of the viewer, or the interpretation of the artwork in itself. GTA 6 is never coming says, as a balding man, your hair is amazing. I'm deeply jealous. I'm sorry. Nothing against bald people. I might one day. I'm thinking to myself, if one day I become bald, I will assume it and rock it and love it. Yeah, Robin Mark says Otto Dix is art, and it's so ugly. Yeah, Otto Dix is very ugly. You can think of also of Freud. Can I show Freud? I think I already tried. Freud's nudes, ugly, but art nonetheless. Yeah, GTA 6 is never coming is answering someone else's comment saying these days something like urinal would just be annoying ephemera than anything. Yeah, be annoying ephemera more than anything, I guess. But yeah, I agree with that. By the way, I think that kind of statement would be overplayed today. Um, and I think um, remember the banana on the wall type of like that controversy, that succès de scandale. I feel like that was just, asking what art is once again, as Urinal did. And I think that this conversation is important, and it will never find a conclusion. But I also think that the fact that it would be annoying and today is just like it's proof that this conversation is evolving, right? That we're progressing beyond that now. I still love that I still love this idea, and I come back to it so many times. The urinal by Duchamp. But if someone was to do it again through a different way, I would find it overplayed and deeply boring again. You guys are funny. Yeah, some people have made artworks that think they're original and end up just being fountain rehash. Yeah, it's not groundbreaking anymore. And it's sad that people still use that. And but there's so many things to talk about in the world. There's so many experiences out there. Does art have to be innovative? At one point, innovation is going to be very hard. I think it can be innovative in what you're conveying. Oh, Mushy came in, says no, art doesn't need purpose. We disagree. Twiggy Shay says, "Are you interested in visual art exclusively, or do you share the same passion to music, literature, etc. as well?" I All right. So I do share the same passion for some other art forms. Music is sadly not one of them because, well, my interest in music is not as advanced. Let's say I was talking about jazz earlier, which I really enjoyed, but I don't think I enjoyed it in a way that some other people can enjoy, in the sense that I'm not literate enough in musical appreciation. Most of my musical appreciation is like intuitive, the kind of aesthetic appreciation that anybody can have, right? Oh, I like this beat, I like this music, it makes me happy, or it makes me want to move. As for literature, I actually worked in the library in different bookstores for not library, in a bookstore. I worked in a bookstore, and I worked in like a total of 4 different bookstores over 4 years, I believe. And I've been a lot into literature. And I studied literature in college as well, literature and creative writing. But I haven't read fiction in a very long time because I've been very, very into a nonfiction. Um, but I can't tell which last fiction book I like. What was it? The last one I read. But yeah, no, I do love other, and oh yeah, cinema and TV and things like that. Like that art form is something that I've made videos on, and I'd like to make more videos on that in the future as well. But yeah, and video games are an art form as well, but I haven't really appreciated them for their art. Maybe eventually I will. Natai says, what a surprise. The anarchist worked in a bookstore. Fun fact, Ballet and I actually met in a bookstore. Ballet, the mod, is actually my partner. We're actually revealing that today. Ballet is my partner, and we met in a bookstore, and then we transferred to a bookstore in Montreal, which was, and it's not like an independent bookstore. It wasn't an anarchist bookstore. It was just a very corporate bookstore, like the equivalent of Barnes and Nobles of Canada. We were in Montreal. We were like in the biggest bookstore of that chain, second biggest in Canada, which means the second biggest in the world for that book chain. And Ballet and I got with some friends, and we unionized it actually. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. Great experience to unionize our bookstore. It was in 2021, I believe. No, 2020. Ballet, can you confirm? 2020? I'm Mrs. Cannabis. I think it was 2021 or 2020. Anyway, but yeah, we can talk about that. I think we talked about enough about art. Let's talk about the important stuff. Unionizing. Trip Ronan says 180 from the current topic. What degree did you get? Did you know you wanted to pursue content creation about art history? I did not know that. I knew I wanted to do educational videos. I studied creative writing just for that. Well, more journalism or whatever. I studied photography to communicate or to communicate ideas and all that. And I think like content creation is one of the greatest way of communicating ideas and communicating and help you develop ideas as well. Did I know it would be about art history? Not at all. I actually started. What degree did I get? I got degrees in a couple of things: social sciences, and photography, literature. I didn't get degrees in them because I dropped out, but from all of them. But but yeah, I didn't know it would be about art history. It just turned out to be art history. It Can Be says, I wish I spoke French so I could read Arthur Rimbaud in French. I could read Arthur Rimbaud in French for you right now. I mean, it wouldn't help you with understanding it, but yeah, unionize the store and yourselves. Yeah, we unionized the store and we unionized ourselves. What a great love story. Paige says, awesome, I was in a government union in Bridgeport, which isn't unfortunately allowed to legally strike. Yeah, that's a funny one. I mean, in some cases, it's like, I understand that. For example, nurses, if like, there's still ways to strike, but you can't but it's like a superficial strike. But like, I think there's nurses and like medical personnel can't really strike because that would bring about really, really terrible conditions or, create tremendous amount of harm. Cops can't strike, though they can have ways of pressuring. I can think of Montreal. I think in the 1970s, actually, the cops, there was a police strike once where they stopped working, and that didn't have great repercussions on the city of Montreal. There's no cops for a day. And it was chaos. It wasn't anarchy. It was chaos. Different. Very different. Robin Marks says, anarchists don't unionize. Too many rules. I mean, I don't know about that. Unionization is not only is it super important. I have a hair in my face. I'm gonna put my bandana. Let's put the black and red bandana for our talk on unionization and anarchism. All right. That's when we're getting radical. That's when we put the bandana on. So, do I look beautiful? All right. This will do. So, yeah, unionization. Like a lot of people who say like there's too many rules or whatever, probably talk about how unions prevent workers from doing certain stuff, which I do understand, I do sympathize, but also there's a reason for that. For example, like unions will stop you from not taking your break. Like let's say, because that's one example I remember, because when we were trying to unionize the store, some of those arguments came up, right? And it's like, oh well, if I don't want to take a break, well, the union will force me to. Well, it's yeah, because if you don't take a break, you're giving yourself an unfair advantage towards your other employees, to your coworkers, towards your boss, like sucking up to your boss in different ways and giving yourself an unfair advantage when it comes to, you know, if you're willing to sacrifice some of your own rights to get buddy with the boss. In that case, when it comes to cutting down people, or when it comes to giving hours to people, they'll unfairly pick you because you're ready to step on your own rights, for example, of taking a break. And because of that, well, now because you do it, now everybody else, if they want hours, if they don't want to be, you know, get cut from, if there's like if the company needs to fire people, they also need to stop taking their breaks because you stop from taking breaks. That's one. It's like when there are rules imposed by the union. I really have something on my nose. I'm doing this Zizek thing now. I'm talking about unions or talking about leftism, where I scratch my nose. But yeah, when there are rules imposed by unions, there's reason for that, and it's also it's not restricting your freedom; it's restricting the freedom of is to enable freedom of other union members. It's something that's like super interesting. So unions are fun, not because they're a way to like get together and like stand up for your rights. I understand it, but when you unionize, and if you haven't unionized, I greatly encourage you to do that, because when you unionize, you see firsthand the contradictions in your interests between yourself and the boss, and it hits you like a truck, which is something that, if you're not critical of capitalism, or if you're not even aware of capitalism and the different interests between yourself and the boss, you will become aware of it if with your friends you try to unionize. Like, for example, our workplace, when we unionized, we're like 40 or 50 people, many of which were probably not anti-capitalist, but understood that the fact that, you know, for example, wages are not going to be raised because of COVID, that was kind of shitty. And different things like that, you know, different working conditions that were kind of shitty. But so let's get together and ask together to have better conditions. And when you see how much the boss not only fights to stop you from having these conditions, but fights to have you stop getting together to ask these conditions, then you understand how these people have contempt for you, how these people do not care for you. All they care for is profits, which obviously, you know, when you think about it, it's obvious. But seeing it materialize before your eyes, and see your own bosses who were supposed to be your friends or supposed to be your family, when these people look down on you with contempt and tell you, oh, you actually don't want to unionize. It doesn't help anyone. Or they say, well, if you have any problems, why don't you ask me? Why you don't need to go to a union, with so much paternalism. That's when like you become class conscious. Some would say that. Now I've been rambling and I haven't been engaging with chat, which I apologize for. It's the bandana. Oh my God, a lot of people were talking. Robin Marks says, I'm a leftist, but unions are passe. They were a step. I understand that. And like a lot of unions have become very, I wouldn't say liberal, but like have become very tamed. I think tamed is a good word. And that's a really good criticism of unions. And I'm not going to fight you on that. But I do think it's a good way for people to have, yeah, they were a first step. But I do think there's still a way to develop class consciousness, at least when it comes to unionizing and understanding the differences and interests between yourself and the boss. Because when you think of how many people think that, the more the business is going to do good, the more I will do good because I work for the business and, we're just a big family and all this, unions break that illusion of cohesiveness with the boss, because there's no cohesiveness. Paige asks, what you think of wage theory of labor of the Marxists? I've heard criticisms of it. Like, I think I understand it. Like I said, or I've had like a whole class dedicated to reading Marx and looking at the wage theory of value. And I think it's a good way to talk about worker exploitation from bosses. The whole idea is, when, like, put it simply, let's say you work, your labor is like, you have a raw product and you have a processed product. All right. So let's say this phone took $200 to produce, in terms of engineering, in terms of like of its resources and all that. The whole idea is not engineering, sorry, in terms of resources, in terms of like the factories that produce it. So everything that's materially needed to make this phone costs $200. If this phone sells for $500, the labor theory value, if put it very simply, is the labor that you put into building that phone is worth $300. So if the phone sells for $500, it took $200 in like material, like forces, let's say, to create it. Like, let's say I'm not explaining it correctly, and I apologize for that for any Marxist. But basically, you add value by working on something, and this added value is represent a number. And for the boss to make profits off that number, like off a product, they need to take some money from the value you added. I think that's a better way to put it. So let's say you add $5 of value to a product through your labor. If the boss pays you $5 for that product, for you producing that product, the boss makes zero profits. But so what he does is he takes part of the value that you produced. I hope there's probably better videos that have been, that there's videos that have been made on the theory, on the labor theory of value, that were thought out in advance and not and not improvised like I did poorly. So I don't know, like I know this criticism of it, but I don't think it matters that much, because I just think it's a good way to explain exploitation of labor, if you can explain it better than I did. You add value to the products you produce, but you're not compensated fully for the value that you add, because if you did, your employer wouldn't get all that, wouldn't make profits. That's basically the gist of it. For every burger you produce, you add value to that burger, but you're not paid for the value that you add to the burger. You're paid like an arbitrary wage. Because if you were paid for the value that you add for each burger, you'd be paid a lot more. And this a lot more that you're not being paid is going to the boss, to the exploiter, to the capitalist exploiter. And I think a lot of people understand that. A lot of people feel like the jobs that they're doing is not worth, how much they're being paid is not worth what they're doing. I can, like, let's say you work at a McDonald's and you produce 100 burgers per hour. All right, whatever. If you work at McDonald's, you produce 100 burgers per hour. That, let's say 60 burgers per hour. That means you perform a burger per minute, right? But if you're being paid $15 an hour, I'll have to take out the calculator. But basically, you're being paid a fraction of a dollar for every burger that you make or that you produce, right? But the boss is making a lot more money than you in terms of how many burgers he makes per burger sold, right? But he's not doing any labor. You're doing the labor. You're adding value to the burger. And there's other people who add value to the burger through, let's say, advertising, through serving the burger. But, all this labor that's put into the burger. Well, yeah. Anyway, it's your soapbox preach. Yes. One day I'll have Marxists, I'll have anarchists talk about that, and a bit more concisely and maybe better. It's on YouTube. Yeah. It's just a page says, Anwar Sheikh at the New School has a semester-long economics course on Marxist economics. It's on YouTube. Even though I'm an anarchist, and I know Marxists have a lot of criticism of anarchism, but I do think the economic criticism or the anti-capitalism that Marxists present are extremely important. But doesn't the boss or whoever organized it also needs to get paid? Ask Scarf Scalabra. Yes, but they're not being paid in terms of what they're adding to the product. They're being paid by taking a percentage of every single thing that you produce. If that makes sense, it's different. It's very different. So when I talk about boss, I mean the person who owns the facility, or owns whatever is being produced, or who owns, in Marxist terms, the means of production. When I say boss, I don't mean like a manager who's being paid, right? For example, I think in cooperatives or in businesses, or decommodified organizations, in organizations that that produce stuff that is decommodified, like in a communist society, I think there will still be bosses, right? But those bosses, if like you're in a co-op, you still have a boss, but the boss is not being paid in terms of how much you're like getting a cut for everything that you sell, right? He's not getting profits, or they're not getting profits. They're getting a wage. And that's very different. Because in that case, you're not like someone who gets profits is not being paid for organizing. He's being paid for owning the means of production. Because even if you own the means of production, you can have someone else organize for you. You can be the owner of a let's say you own a building with six tenants or 6 units. You give one of those units to someone who as a janitor who takes care of the whole unit, right? Or the whole building. In that case, you're getting money from it's different, but you're getting money from everyone, but you're not contributing anything. You're not even showing up there. And many people do the same for businesses, you know? Like you think of McDonald's, like it's possible. Some bosses or some owners of means of productions do that. But for example, a McDonald's owner might not step foot once in their how do you call it? In their facility, well, in their restaurant, right? People who organize like their employees are managers. People who organize their taxes are accountants. They don't do much. Some might say they don't do shit. Depends on the owner or whatever. Anyway. Oh, Alex Sorensen's leaving. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of late for Europe. I might make streams earlier for my European friends. Yeah, Joseph Animo says capitalists don't have to do any work beyond owning things, and that's the issue here. It's the idea that they don't need to work, and when they do work, and they say that the profits are coming from the work, it's not coming from the work. It's still coming from owning things. Because if it was profits from just working, you'd have a wage, and the profits wouldn't go directly in your pocket. Yoav also is going to bed. Good night, Yoav. The shareholders of McDonald's ain't flipping burgers. I don't know if they're shareholders, but yeah, no, they're not doing work. Do galleries exploit artists for by selling their work? That's a good question. That's something to look into, because I'm not that much into gallery, like the gallerist worlds or whatever. But very often, some galleries like take 50% of how much an artist like sells. But an artist might go to galleries to get their things sold. So it's more like, I think, but there's definitely an argument for that. But it feels like more like an investment from. Sorry, it feels like more like an investment from artists to have like like you're paying to have the platform of galleries and have their connections and being like having your work sold more often. Yeah, Paige quoting David Graeber. I think Ballet is reading David Graeber right now. The book Debt. Daki says, "I know you already got a video on this, but do you still agree about those teenagers that poured soup on one of Van Gogh's artworks?" Yeah, yeah, I do. I do. For different reasons. First, like a lot of these artworks, I don't care that much for because they're dead. Like another thing I can say is like I don't care for art like original artworks that much. I don't think they're that important. I think ideas and I think that the essence of artworks are already present in reproductions. So when you see a painting reproduced on your computer, I think you get the gist of it and you understand its contribution. You understand the ideas that are being like presented. Because I have a very more a conceptual view of art. So I don't care that much for originals, and often they're more like so like I see art like the Van Gogh painting more as like a cultural artifact, and when it comes to direct action, and it's a dead cultural artifact in the sense that it's not being engaged with anymore, or it is being engaged with, but like I don't know. It's when it comes to raising awareness for art, for ecological, for the destruction of humanity through ecological disaster. I don't think you can go that far. You can go too far. I think murder is going too far. But at the same time, if you take a purely consequentialist like a view on it, you know, if and I've heard that before, I've heard that argument before, and I have to agree with it. If, for example, dropping a nuke on New York City would make everything like the ecological like disaster like end, you know, no climate catastrophe for some reason because there was a nuke dropped on New York and everybody was like, oh my God, we need to really, I don't know. I think that would be a net positive, at least on a purely consequential perspective, because the alternative is everybody dying, you know? So that's why I think but yeah, that's why I think, for example, I'm not that concerned with a work of art being it wasn't even damaged for raising awareness for a problem that, you know, might doom us all. So I think it's no, my stance hasn't changed. Maybe it will one day. Oh, super chat. Robin Marks. It's Robin who has been contributing a lot. Told you I hadn't had a drink in months. Had some wine tonight. I'd buy you a drink in a bar, but can't. So I know art. Your headband is art. Yes. I'm an anarchist first, artist second, human third. We sound very alike. Well, thank you for the drink. I hope you hadn't had a drink in months because of addiction. I hope it's circumstantial and not like but if it is, you know, circumstantial that you hadn't had a drink in months and now you can finally have some wine, I'm happy for you. Thank you for saying that my headband is art. I love my headband. But yeah, no, anarchist, artist. I don't even think I'm an artist, but yeah, human. No, Natai has debt also. The only problem with bricks like that is that, like I said earlier, I'm a very slow reader, not only for chat, but for books also. And Bali has debt next to them right now. And it's a brick, and those things scare me. Not that I would stop reading a book for that. I want like I got Wealth of Nation by Adam Smith. It's sitting right next, sitting in my room right now. I'll attack that eventually, but that's also a brick. Oh, Fred V says he runs a small gallery and we do 60-40 with 60 going to the artist. It also depends, like, that's the thing. Galleries also, like, at least the ones that come up to mind, like, are in like very expensive neighborhoods because that's where rich people are, and that's usually people that you want to target. And just rent, it must be like insanely high for those type of galleries, so they have to pay it as well. Problem is landlords again. Yeah, Joseph Anino says, well, I agree. A lot of works don't really have their full impact until you see them in person. Some works, yeah, some works are like that as well. I do agree with that. But I do think, I don't know. Like, for example, I know Mark Rothko, for example. You need to see it in person to fully appreciate its impact. But like when you see a Mark Rothko, do you fully appreciate the impact because it's that crazy? Or is it because it's a Mark Rothko and it's associated to, like, it's legendary in its aura, right? And I think if you're only seeing it and like you're getting like this huge transformative experience because it's a Mark Rothko, I feel like, I don't know how. I mean, it is a legitimate like feeling, I imagine, but I'm wondering how, because it's like that feeling because it's a Rothko, it's an authentic Rothko in front of you. I don't know how legitimate it is. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Natai says, speaking of defacing art, did you watch Glass Onion? I didn't. Did people recommend it last stream? If you do recommend it one day, if you do recommend it, I'll watch it before next stream, and we can talk about that. Because we didn't really have at the beginning of the stream, I said I want to do segments for my second channel, right? So we can organize, and I haven't done that. I've just been hanging out. Just looked him up. Looks like Rothko is dead, so skip, huh? I feel like what is interesting in Rothko is the process of the paintings he created. I feel like the process can be repeated. If you actually do get, crazy experiences from the paintings that Rothko did through his process, you should be able to have the same kind of feeling when you look at a Rothko-like painting. But I don't think most people would. They would, they need the fact that it's a Rothko. Oh, thank you, Luke. What a nice comment. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're sitting back and enjoying. I was thinking maybe I could create like a segment, because last stream we talked about Hogwarts Legacy and about but I didn't really like the conversation because it wasn't that productive. But I would like to talk about boycott in general as maybe a segment. And because I watched this video by Anarch. If you don't know Anarch, today's stream is a lot about recommending YouTubers, and I'll recommend to you Anarch, who wrote no, he didn't write it, but he made a video on boycotting, and I found it super interesting and thought-provoking. Are boycotts effective? And I'll show it to you now, and we'll talk about boycotts because I think it's an interesting and a fascinating. Here, the role of the boycott. 8 days ago, he got a new setup. It's looking good, sounding good, and it's about 20 minutes. And I mostly agree with like, watch the video, but I fully agree with what he says. So he says he disagrees with the strategy of boycotts as I do, and very often he talks he links it to like this a very liberal strategy of individualizing social problems, which I also agree with. He does, however, something that I don't necessarily agree with. It's like a small gripe, but he does a distinction between individual boycott and social boycott, which I think is, if there is a distinction between both, and I want to know your opinions on that, if there is such a thing as an individual and a social boycott, because he says that social boycotts are they are organized and individual boycotts aren't. But I think every individual boycott is part of a more organized, wider boycott. And if it's not organized centrally, it's more loosely decentralized. Let's say you individually boycott Amazon, right? It's not part of a social boycott in a way, in the sense that you're not part of a movement with a hashtag and everything. But there is a couple of people that are boycotting Amazon in general, and you could call it that, like a movement, but like a more decentralized movement, right? So I feel like this distinction between social and individual boycott isn't that relevant, because the effects of both are pretty much the same, I think. I think a social boycott, if in its organization, to use Anarch's terms, can be more effective, but not because it's a social boycott, but just because it's more directed, I feel. And he does underline that, the ideas of having precise goals with a precise message. But again, when you boycott, let's say Amazon individually from your own home without necessarily participating in a larger movement, you still have goals, and you still have, like, you have very clearly defined ends. But the kind of boycotts I want to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of you will talk to, I can link the channel. Oh, Bali already did. Look at that. But the kind of boycotts I want to talk about are local boycotts, because I think that those are the ones that work the most. Because boycotts are, as I said, more like individualizing problems, like that liberal tendency of individualizing problems. So when you're boycotting Amazon, or you're boycotting Hogwarts Legacy, or you're boycotting a larger corporation, or like a international corporation, like, your individuality doesn't matter, and deluding yourself in the fact that it matters and that your consumption choices do matter is irrelevant at best and harmful at worst. So, but it can work locally, and Anarch also talks about that. And I wanted to use an anecdote. When I grew up in a city with the most horses per capita in my province, And that city had 2 grocery stores, one of which sold horse meat. And people started boycotting the store that sold horse meat. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Horse meat, cow meat, whatever. It's the same process. It's the same, I imagine. But people really cared about horses because it was part of their culture, and they were mad that this grocery store sold horses, and people would boycott that store just for that. And that store ended up closing doors. It might have been because of other variables, but at least in the broader social conversation, it was because of the horses, because of the horse meat scandal. And not only did that close the store that was selling horse meat, but it also motivated or disincentivized the current or the remaining grocery store to sell horse meat, right? So not only are you actually helping actually you're contributing to the horse meat sale to like disappear, but you're also ensuring that it never comes back, because now there's an incentive to not have horse meat anymore. And I feel like when on a local level, that can be extremely powerful. And I think someone brought up, for example, the bus. I think it was it Paige? Yeah, the Montgomery bus boycott seemed to work, and that's an example of local boycott. And I feel like local boycott, if there is a distinction between boycotts, I think it's not an individual versus a social boycott. I think it's a local versus international boycott, I guess. A local boycott is more effective and can be a source of a lot more cohesion socially. So, for example, the Montgomery bus boycott is a local example. I'm assuming, because I haven't done as much research in Montgomery bus boycott, but it also creates this cohesion, right? Between people feeling the same indignation or feeling or sharing the same experience, right? And that cohesion is part of creating class consciousness, or of not only sharing your experience, but being able to identify it with other people and have other people identify with it just by seeing other people taking action on it. Yeah, Luke Taylor says, when I boycott, I don't really conceptualize it as organized because I see it as a vote with your wallet kind of behavior. I'm not necessarily talking with anyone else about it. But see, that's the liberal criticism, or like the criticism of it being liberal, that, vote with your wallet is, I don't think that's necessarily like the greatest way, because one of the downsides of boycotts and vote with your wallet and all that, and has been clearly underlined by the whole Hogwarts legacy situation, right? Where you put moral weight on people's economic decisions and consumption decisions, which alienates a lot of people from making those decisions, right? And alienates people from the movement who are. And I think that, individualizing those problems, saying that, oh, you're contributing to the transphobia of J.K. Rowling, or you're contributing to the human rights abuse of Coca-Cola or Nestle, like, is not the greatest way to go about it, because you're trying to guilt people into joining your movement, which I don't think is the greatest way of introducing people to your movement, right? You might, I think it's much better to say, yeah, it's like, Nestle products, like Kit Kats are great, but did you know that Nestle does terrible things? Is it in South America or Africa? Or Coca-Cola death squads or whatever? Like, you can talk about that without trying to to to, to guilt trip people into their consumer habits, and saying, yeah, it like you can still eat Kit Kats, and like, because not buying a Kit Kat is not going to affect Nestle at all, obviously not, but being aware of it, I feel like having just that awareness is already important. Yeah, Kelton says, and Kelton Grayson, and that's true. When everything is now large corporations, local boycotts have little effects. I I understand that. I do think they still have if like effects, but it is true that it's becoming less and less the case. For example, the grocery store was part of a big grocery store chain, and they closed it. The one for with the horses there, it was part of a big grocery store chain, and they closed it, right? Um, and that did work, but when it comes to like, I don't know, clothes or electronics or stuff like that, people can just, you can maybe close at best, your local Best Buy, I guess, but people are still gonna just turn to Amazon in that case. So how better is that? So yeah, there is a criticism there that is completely worth it. Large corporations that have their effect everywhere, not just locally, but Robin Marks says Rosa Parks wasn't trying to start a movement. She was a black woman who worked a hard job, was tired, and didn't want to follow the rules and rebelled. It wasn't local, it was personal. That's wrong, actually. And the whole myth that Rosa Parks was just like not part of any movements and she was just individual and all that. That's yeah. I don't know enough about the history, and I don't know enough about Rosa Parks, but I do know that it was an organized event. It wasn't just this. I have to look at it. She was like an NAACP activist, participating in several high-profile civil rights campaigns. Yeah, let's do a little wiki history. So Rosa Parks, member of the NAACP activist in 1943. 12 years later, she does the bus thing, the very famous Rosa Parks bus thing, and the NAACP, I can't say that, NAACP was like had organized these resistance, like those like that resistance, but they believed that civil disobedience from a woman first would be better accepted. And this whole idea that it's just a lady, just tired after work, maybe emphasized the fact that she was yeah. Yeah, Joseph Anino says saying vote with your wallet shows how much a society is controlled by corporations outside the scope of democracy. Absolutely. I think it's if vote for your wallet is still like is a good thing, it's only to show that not only is it your wallet is becoming more of a power, it's more of a power than your vote in itself, but also that people with more money on their wallets have more power than you. So vote for your wallet in that case is powerful, at least in showing that. Flamingo, yeah, asking for a Discord eventually. I promise. PP the hamster asking, what? J.K. Rowling is transphobic? Yeah. She really is. But yeah, people were boycotting the game for that, which was subject to a lot of criticism. I recommend, I believe it was Sean's video, not me, another Sean, on J.K. Rowling. Is it Sean or Three Arrows? No, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling's new friends, linking J.K. Rowling to the far right. Right here, this video. Being far right is bad enough, but being transphobic, I mean, both are kind of linked. Boycotts work similarly to capitalism. Sometimes you get a good individual result or two, but mostly it's just people pretending not to be chewed by the maw of the beast, says Alec Georgiak. Yeah, for sure. It can feel good, and like I won't stop someone from, obviously, from being from boycotting. If they want, they can, obviously, but it's at best trying to not participate, but try not participate is very hard. Robin Marks, thank you for the $20, but we'll have to talk later about that money that you're giving me, because I might turn it down depending on your state. We'll talk tomorrow, maybe, if you can send me a DM, and yeah, we'll see if I can give you back that money. I don't know how, but we'll talk tomorrow. You can DM me on Instagram. Yeah, Joseph Anino again. The myth is a good way to make people think they don't need to organize. I think boycotts can be a good way to organize, especially locally, if you want to organize something on a more regional level, because you need to get with other people to like create that movement. But if it's online and it's for a very broad goal, like for Hogwarts Legacy, then yeah, I think it might be a way to think that you're actually doing something without actually doing something. PP the Hamster says, so we understand boycotting Hogwarts is just like what Rosa Parks did. The two are equal? No, the two are not equal. And I think one of the reasons why is because one was highly organized and local. The other was a bunch of people on Twitter saying we should boycott a game that was going to be one of the highest selling game in the world or in history. React stream. It's a third. Natai advocating for that. Watcher says adding phobic to everything doesn't aid the conversation much. It's unfair framing. It's unfair framing of the opponent. People can hate X without being afraid of it, or X phobic. It's just rhetoric. All right, sorry guys. J.K. Rowling isn't transphobe. She's just a bigot. She's not afraid of trans people. Actually, I think she is actually afraid of trans people. She excused her transphobia against, like, for example, more specifically, trans women by saying that she was abused by men, and that when she sees a trans woman, especially if she was to cross one in a public bathroom, whatever, she because of her experience with men in the past, she would feel violated. So she is afraid, but not every transphobe is afraid of trans people, I guess. They're bigots. I think it's semantic at that point. Like a racist, right? If we call it a race phobe, it's the same thing. Thank you for Flamigno. Thank you very much. Language just evolves, yeah. But the ideas, at least in terms of transphobia and bigotry, remain. Yeah, Paige. That's the idea that Paige says she assumes all men are predatory and assumes trans women are just a variety of predatory men. Absolutely, and that's one of the issues with, for example, the whole bathroom bills that that started and that took off. It's the idea that men are predatory and that trans women are just predatory men. It's a harmful. It's funny because a lot of conservatives who are transphobic and who adhere to that line are people who say, well, these raging feminists keep saying that men are all predators and all that, and then when it comes to trans women, they say, well, men are predators, that's why we have to protect women from trans women. PP the Hamster says, what did she do exactly? Did she express explicit bigotry, or does she not agree with the idea and therefore is titled as such? If you don't agree with the idea that trans women are women, I do think that that it is bigotry. I feel like if you say that trans women are men, I feel like that's bigotry. Don't you? Why is it bigotry? Well, not accepting the gender identity of someone is bigotry. It's like if someone says that they're Like, for example, if someone says they're like they identify as gay, if we're not taking gender identity, we're taking sexual identity. If someone says gay and they're like, you're not gay. You might be confused, but you're not gay, right? Well, we would call them not trans. We'd call them homophobe. What do you mean? Why? What do you mean? Like I'm confused for identifying as gay? And I think when it comes to gender identity, it's the same. They're two different, very different things, but your approach to it. If you say that if someone identifies as gay, you're saying no, you're not gay. Well, what the fuck do you mean I'm not gay? What is the underlying reason as to why you're telling me I'm not gay? Is it because you don't think that gay people are a thing? Do you think that gay people don't exist or shouldn't exist? So when you say that, when you don't accept the fact that trans women are women, you're implying that you don't think that trans women should exist, or that you're erasing their identity as a concept. Welcome back, Bejeweled Sledgehammer. We we got a bit away from art. There's a lot of comments. I'm trying to. Yeah. Also, like homophobia or like transphobia doesn't necessarily mean that you're afraid, but as Finlay says, hatred of a group comes from the fear of the group and questions influence on society and people, and that they are uncomfortable with change. So like when you say don't like if you don't like trans people, trans women, you might not be afraid of them, but you might be afraid of the fact that they exist, or that they're having more power or more. And when I say power, I mean like they can now advocate for their rights. Yeah, PB the hamster says, no, a female's a female. You can't change something that you are. I respectfully disagree. But the thing is, as Paige says, there's a difference between gender and biological sex. Like you said, female is biological, but a woman is not biological. It's a very elemental and like fundamental distinction that we need to understand if we're going to talk about that, is the difference between sex and gender, female and women. A lot of people don't want to accept that there's a difference, but if you don't believe that there's a difference, why is there such a different, why are those two distinct categories, like why were they identified as distinct categories? Why is gender and sex not changeable? And I think that the argument is really easy to make. See it as a rejection of reality. But like, for example, I'm non-binary, so I'm technically trans. If you understand that gender and sex is different, then I think that it's easy to accept trans people and people who with the whole gender thing. And as Natai says, gender is a social category influenced by sex. Well, gender is a social category. Sex is like a biological category. So like sex is like the chromosomes. It's like, and it's not even, it's bimodal. It's not binary. So there's characteristics, physical characteristics for what we usually associate with female and some with male. The chromosomes are part of it. Genitalia is part of it. Those things. But gender is everything that comes from like social attributes. So long hair, usually long hair, and like a lot of in some cultures was associated with being a woman, right? Skirts right now are associated with being a woman, but those things are socially determined. There's no reason why long hair should be only for women. Now it's being changed because like some men actually challenged that. There's a video I saw just today about in the 60s, people revolting against the idea that men had long hair because they thought that why are they taking themselves for women? So if you understand this distinction between the social category, which is gender, and the biological category, which is sex, then you can understand that socially, the things that we associate with genders are arbitrary, right? And for example, the reason why I identify as non-binary is because I reject the social category of being a man, because I don't identify with it. I don't identify with a lot of its values, and I don't identify with a lot of its presentation. I like, in terms of values, I think I associate more with like womanly values, and I feel like a lot of people. And Robin says, "I love you, but biology is real." It is real. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying there's two different categories. It's not hard. It's not one or the other. Both, like, for example, biologically, I'm a male. I can prove it to you, but then this stream would be terminated, and I'd probably lose my channel. However, socially, I'm presenting as a male because I have a lot of. I'm presenting as a man because I have many features that are associated with men. For example, my beard. What I could do is put makeup on, which would be presenting as a woman. But makeup is not a female thing. It's a woman thing. So it's a social thing. But many males can wear makeup. I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah, Adam. Yeah, nobody argues that biology isn't real. Yeah, exactly. It can be says no one is that. Like, a lot of conservatives will say, well, you're denying biology. It's not denying biology. It's understand, like, recognizing it, but also recognizing that there's a social factor associated very often to it, but that is completely arbitrary, and that many people might not be comfortable associating with. I don't associate with being a man in the sense that I just don't associate with the values, with the traditional roles associated with being a man. If I was a trans girl, then I would associate a lot more with womanly values, and I would want to be perceived as a woman. Robin says, I was a feminine boy, long hair in a violent man's world. I was teased and tortured. I am feminine, but there's so much man to me. I'm violent like... Yeah, well, that's the thing. There you go. It shows that there's ambiguity to it. And if you want to embrace your more feminine side as a man, you can, but you can also you seem to also want to embrace your masculine side. And if you identify as a man, that's really good. But if you wanted to identify as a woman, maybe you would if you weren't as teased and tortured when you were young. Then you could also be a woman, or you could be like me, non-binary, and do whatever the fuck you want because you don't want to be constricted by those social expectations. Yeah, Adam says 99% of these arguments are based on bad information or full ignorance. Yeah, well, there's a lot of conservative talking points. Like the idea that biology is real is an argument against the existence and the validity of trans people. Is like, it's 101, but oh well. Paige says, Step Back History has a video on gender categories in history and how they are very different in time and place. I would love to watch that video. I probably will after the stream. And I know Natai is going to say, react stream. I'm not reacting to Step Back History's video. Genwa Mugdad says, just a question because I'm genuinely curious. If someone presents as non-binary because they don't fit the societal value of their gender, aren't you reinforcing stereotypes? If someone presents as non-binary because they don't fit the societal values of their gender, aren't you just reinforcing stereotypes? I think they're deconstructing stereotypes. But gender roles are absolutely linked to stereotypes, and that would be, let's say, a non like gender abolitionists, people who believe that gender should be abolished in general and see everyone as genderless or without those social expectations, as I am. I'm a gender abolitionist. Those societal values of their gender are basically stereotypes, right? Of course it is. For example, the idea that, as Robin was saying earlier, like hunting is something that, men want. Violence is something men want. But that's like stereotypes. A lot of men are soft. A lot of men don't like hunting, right? And what are the societal values on women, right? Like, makeup, you have to care about your appearance. You have to, wear womanly clothes or whatever. Like, those are stereotypes. The stereotype of a woman is like the societal values of that gender. I hope I understood that question, and I hope I answered it correctly. Yeah, science has shown it's a spectrum, even regarding biological sex. Science Show Hank Green has a great video on it for those interested. We're not doing it. We're not looking it up. But yeah, you should. I've heard about that, and I do think it's important. Yeah, Banked Attacks is saying, it's obvious you can be born a male or a female, but the terms of man and women bring a lot of specific values that you can't expect everyone to fit in. That's why non-binary exists. Yeah, that's why we identify as non-binary, but you can also be a man and not fit with many of the specific values that are ascribed to men. Same thing for women. You can be defiant and say, I still identify as a man, even if I'm soft, even if I don't like sports, even if I do the blah, blah, blah. You can still identify as a man. And that's why, like, gender is such a weird concept to have, in a way. Because you can be a man in your own way, but also to be a man, you have to, like, it's a category that's associated with very vague and arbitrary concepts. It's one of the reasons why we want to get rid of it. Watcher says, PP the hamster, I know, that's the point. People also call everybody who dislikes gays homophobes just to stir up conflict. I mean, like, if you're a homophobe, in itself, that's a conflict, right? Like, it's not, people calling people who dislike gays homophobes are not stirring up the conflict. The fact that you don't like gays is the conflict itself. Oh, this guy doesn't like black people. But people who call him racist are the ones who are trying to stir shit up. No. El Technopata donates €5. Thank you so much. Hey, I fell in love with your channel. Is very interesting. And I gotta ask, do you think video games are an artistic medium the same way as cinema? Not in the same way as cinema. Even better than cinema. Video games are even more of an artistic medium than cinema. Because not only do they have a lot of things in common with cinema, which is like music, dialogue, composition, and all these things, but there's like a layer of interactivity and world building that you may have in cinema, but not as much as you would in video games. And like the artistic like merit in video games and in cinema is like stories, and video games can elaborate even more complex stories in a more complex world in a way that cinema could never do. That being said, not every video game is necessarily art. Would I call Tetris art? Not really. Would I call Red Dead Redemption 2 art? Absolutely. PP the Hamster says, look, I disagree with a lot of what's being said. However, I can still discuss Tarkovsky and Otto Dix and find common ground too. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people who don't think that trans women are women, or who don't think that trans people are valid, it won't happen on a snap of a finger to accept trans identities. The same way that people who didn't accept gay people as a concept, it didn't like took the snap of a finger to accept homosexuality, right? It's going to take a while. And I think the more it's being normalized, the more people are going to accept it and are going to realize that, you know, waging a war against it is just doing more harm than good. But yeah, no, I think it's okay to disagree with a lot of what I said. And I think just having that conversation sparks thoughts afterwards. It's going to spark thoughts with me as well, right? I'm not saying that that it's only one way, but I do hope that after having a conversation like that on this platform also makes you think about it. And I think it will. And like, you might not change your opinion, you might, but you know, I'm not expecting people to like change their minds right away. Gender is similar to race in the interaction between social categories in biology. And they actually interact. Yes, yeah. Sorry, that took a while. Yes, for sure. A lot of the things that are socially attributed to race and gender are like arbitrary or like come from history often and are not necessarily associated to the biology of the individual, but more to stereotypes or to yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, Paige, I'm totally with you on that one. I'm more worried about all the anti-trans bills rolling out in red states than a transphobic children's author. Yes, and same thing goes for transphobes online, right? Like people who say that trans women are not women. I'm more worried about the anti-trans bills, and I feel like yeah, and transphobes online can definitely change. Though the transphobic children's author is very influential because they have a big platform, they have a lot of money, but at the same time, I don't know how much we can change their minds. Big conversation. I am having a hard time following. I'm gonna have to skip a couple of things. I'm sorry, guys. There's another Technopada saying, with the same way I meant they can have five euros, by the way. Thank you so euros. That's it's kind of late for you, but thank you. They can have artistic intentions, but with their own ways to do it. But 100% agree with what you said. Yeah, I'm happy about that. I was thinking maybe one day I could like analyze a work of video, like a video game, as a work of art. But to do that, like for example, Red Dead Redemption 2, which I absolutely loved, but like I would need to play it fully I have the feeling to truly give like a good review of the artistic merit of like Red Dead Redemption 2, I would need to play it fully, and it would be like a 6-hour video, just because it's so nuanced and complex, and the character dynamics are so nuanced, and there's so many characters. It would be a lot harder than a movie or a painting, obviously. So many, so many comments, a lot of discussions going on. Yeah, the whole culture war around trans people is also like the fact that it's focused on that makes it very unproductive, and that's why I think like when someone talks like uses Ben Shapiro rhetoric to talk about trans people and like the culture war, I think it's good to just say like, all right, well, here are my arguments, and like you can think about it, instead of going at like attacking them for it. Because if you attack them for it, you're validating the culture war. The oh, if you don't accept gender ideology, you are a transphobe, you're a homophobe, and you'll be chastised. Blah blah blah. Like, I think a good way to not feed in that culture war narrative, that very like that very I don't know how to say it, like divisive and like hyper confrontational like situation, is just to say, yeah, for sure, well, here are my arguments and think about it. That's what I try to do with I think it's PP the Hammer. I think it's like, here are my arguments, and I PP the Hamster, sorry. It's like, yeah, like if you get really angry and all that, it just feeds the culture war thing. At the end of the day, we're just individuals with very little power, unless, you know. So yeah, I agree with Finlay about the video games, and that's another thing. If I want to like review the artistic merit of a video game, I want to do different walkthroughs with different choices. That actually affects my way my way of engaging with cinema. The fact that I played video games so much when I was young, because video games are so interactive and they need your input all the time, and cinema is more passive, and I've had a hard time doing cinema because of that. Happy to see all this conversation. Fred V's favorite show right now is Last of Us. Yeah, I do like the Last of Us show right now as well. I saw Let Me Skip Intro has a good criticism of The Last of Us, which I find interesting and I found compelling. It was 8 days ago. Let me feature it again. That one, The Art of the End, talking about apocalyptic horror. And he calls it empty. He says that the show is not really exploring a lot of what is interesting in post-apocalyptic horror, and I find it like, I still enjoy the show, but his criticism of it is definitely worth checking out. Adam says, good advice. I need to remember not to feed the beast. Yeah, by not being I've made that mistake of being angry, and it's normal to be angry, and it's like, it's it like, of course you might get angry. Um, but at the same time, I feel like letting people, like, just giving your arguments and letting people think about it. Like, I fell in the alt right pipeline when I was pretty young, when I was like 16 years old. I was in the skeptic community, and I was, yeah, definitely sliding my way to the alt right. And I was having this conversation on Omegle of all places. And on Omegle, there was this feminist. Oh, and I hated feminists back then. Feminists, I hated them. And banshees, harpies. And we were having a conversation, and she was just so chill. And my idea of feminists was that, oh, they're triggered all the time. They're yelling at me. They're going to call me a misogynist freak, a creep guy, whatever. And I was talking to her, and she was giving good arguments or whatever. And I was just so angry. I was the triggered one in the end, you know? And then I was basically embarrassing myself to that feminist because I was so triggered, and I was embodying the thing that I was criticizing her for. And she was just super chill. And I just ended the conversation super angry, and she was chill. And after that, it was like, I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. My heart was beating. I was all red. And that's when I realized, like, holy shit, maybe I should reevaluate what I was thinking of what a feminist is. There might be banshee feminists. There might be like harpy feminists somewhere. But that one was chill and like humiliated me. And if I don't want to be humiliated again, maybe I need to reevaluate some things. That's a bit of my story. Oh, El Technopada again with the 20 euros. Thank you so much. Says the last one about this. I would even say that Sonic, my favorite game franchise, can be considered as art, knowing that is inferior as other works like RDR2, but it's still art because the message and themes it has. I've never played Sonic, and I would like to explore that, the idea that it has messages and themes and how deep they are, because there's that as well, right? Like, because very often we see video games as like gameplay first, story second, which is definitely something that, you know, that is prevalent in video games. Because a lot of people don't play for the story, right? They play for the fun, it's like they don't play for the plot. Just like you don't watch for the plot for certain videos as well, right? But there is still plot there. Maybe it would be worth investigating for sure. Whoa, so many donations. Thank you so much, guys. All coming in at the same time. El Tecnopada saying, and to add to the trans discussion, here in Spain, they add the trans law who gives a lot of rights to the trans people. I didn't know that. And the far right parties and media share a lot of fake news to take that up. That's amazing. Like, it's easy to see everything that's going on, especially in the US, like the pushback of like conservatives and like a lot of anti-trans bills. But people who are anti-trans, I think, if I remember the statistics correctly, are a minority. People who are transphobic, or I don't want to trigger people in chat. People who are bigoted against trans people are a minority, right? That doesn't mean that things are fine, because you can be a minority in power. Minorities, privileged minorities, have been in power since the dawn of time. So that doesn't mean that trans people are okay, like are safe and secure. But the fact that trans people are being more and more normalized, and a lot of people are backing them in like this social coming out, right? Is good news. Happy to see that it's happening in Spain. It's like we see like the United States as like the center of the world, obviously, and it's very influential and all that. But like in some places, right, like rights for trans people are being advanced and being defended and promoted, and it's great. And thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam, for the $10. Very appreciated. Thank you so much. Super happy to be talking about that. Never really spoke about, especially except for like one video I talked about like trans people, I think, or two. Yeah. Robin Mark says I'm a skeptic of everything. Oh yeah, that's one thing I wanted to rant about. All right, let me rant about something. Can in chat, all right? I'm gonna ask something in chat. Can you like all list like your favorite movies, all right? And it has to be movies that I can recognize, all right? Can you all list your favorite movies? I'd really like that. It would help me for my next bit. Yeah, rant stream. Yes. Rant away, all right? Well, it's going to be a sarcastic rant. Watch it. So, my video on The Last of Us had someone complaining about the fact that they're pushing gay people. They're pushing gay people down our throats. Gay ideology. Well, I have a gripe. Because I'm also angry. Because, yes, they're pushing gay ideology in The Last of Us. But you know what ideology has been pushed even more? Hetero ideology. And I can prove it to you. All right? Let me show you the greatest movies of all time. It's all straight people. It's being pushed down our throats. See, everybody's putting their favorite movies in chat. All heterosexual people. Look at that. Titanic. I mean, most watched movies of all time. Titanic. Straight. E.T. All right. Ambiguous. All right. I'll give it to that. Star Wars. Full of straight people. I don't know. Terminator. Is there a love story in Terminator? I haven't watched Terminator. Jesus. I'm sure that's straight. Jurassic Park. Oh, you know, Indiana Jones is straight. E.T. was gay? Was he really? That's why I'm saying ambiguous. I'm not sure. Well, like, E.T. maybe doesn't even have like a gender, which, you know, props to him. All this to say, yeah, it's a Christian movie. There's romance in Terminator. Is it gay romance? It's straight romance? Again, pushing down heterosexual stereotypes and heterosexual conventions down our throats. Is that true? In Alien 1, Lambert is a trans character? I don't watch movies that much. There's a cut gay sex scene in E.T. So it's canon? I don't believe you. Top Gun was gay. Yeah, it was. I think they took that out from the new one though. But all that to say, for people who say that it's being pushed on us, right? That this gay agenda is being pushed on us, which a lot of people will say, well, fuck, straight agenda is being pushed on us. Pushed hard on us. As a gay person, as a queer person, I don't feel comfortable with Hollywood always pushing heteronormativity on me. I haven't watched Moonlight. That is on my to watch. Gatsby is Dead. That's something I want to watch for sure. Luke Taylor, I don't know if you stole that joke from somewhere else, but if Top Gun, I'll steal it right now. If Top Gun is so gay, then shouldn't the second movie be called Bottom Gun? Yeah, boycott Hollywood. See, Watcher, who was like, I think skeptical of trans people, now wants to boycott Hollywood for heteronormativity. I convinced them. Told you guys, you can't be angry. Adam says we should accept heterosexuals for who they are as human beings. Yeah, I agree with that. But like, why are they pushing it on us through Hollywood, right? I think they're teaching it in schools. Like, I don't have kids, right? But if I had kids, I would be so outraged from all these heterosexual couples and in these school books. Ugh. I think that's sexual indoctrination. I would even call it grooming. El Tecnopada again. Thank you so much. Like a Spanish YouTuber said, there's no other force of inclusion as the white straight males in the 500 years of art or religious representation. Are Spaniards white? I don't even know. I'm seriously, I don't know. Or is it like subject to debate like Italians? Okay, Watcher says they're not skeptical of trans people at all. All right, I just wanted to point it out. Yeah, Finlay says you can make the point that Hollywood is an industry. I was being facetious about that, but you can make the point that Hollywood is an industry that wants to make money, so they want to appeal to the most people, and there are more heterosexual people, to LGBTQ plus people. Yeah, no, for sure. And people will identify more to that, and for sure. But that it is an argument, but it's also an argument like that that reinforces the fact that, well, for that argument, well, it's normal that there's only white people on the screen. Luckily, there's backlash to that, of course. Yeah, but homosexuality should be explored more in films, says then Finlay. Yeah, Last of Us episode 3 was a good way. It was a good reason. Like, it was a good example of that. Company Potluck says it doesn't feel human to never see different types of relationships. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit weird. Like, I was being like sarcastic about that, but it is sometimes weird. Like how, and I feel like it's because maybe movies are made by like an older generation often, or approved by an older generation, and more, especially artsy types who do make movies, have gay couples all the time around them, gay and queer people all the time around them, because our generation is going to be super gay. I feel like the media that's going to come in future years is going to be even more super gay. So if you want to be on the winning side, you should accept super gay media. think of any Christmas movie, a straight couple dressed in red and green. There's there's like 50 of those romance movies. Yeah, there's memes about that. Bally wrote that. Flamingo or Flamigno says, "What do you think about Netflix or Disney Plus making LGBT category of movie? Coming from these companies, I don't think it's right personally. I don't disagree with it. And the reason why I don't disagree with it is because I still think that it's like, for example, if those movies only appear in the LGBT category, then that's problematic because that means, the only way of seeing them is to go in that category, and that feels more like segregation. But that category, if it's used as more like a showcase, because LGBT like category of movies or LGBTQ category of movies is or LGBTQ plus cinema in general is definitely a thing. And if you want to look for that, or if you want to see what's being produced in that category, it's good to have a category as long as it's not segregated in there. But I don't think it is. But if it is problematic. It means that, you have the straight movie and the gay movie. We don't want that. I'm trying to when I don't talk, I'm reading. If that wasn't I'm not disassociating. I'm actually reading your comments. Paige says, I think the economics as mass entertainment make homosexual romance a niche genre. It does. Um, if it's solely about that, I feel like Last of Us showed us that you can have homosexual romance, but like a movie about homosexual romance might not. Yeah, it's gonna be a niche genre. But I feel like romance movies in general are becoming more and more niche as well. I don't know. I'm not a very big consumer of romance movies in general, so I couldn't tell. El Tecnopada saying a movie about LGBT people, Pride, 100% recommend. I don't think I've watched gay cinema personally. Again, I'm not a huge into like really into movies, but again, maybe I'll watch Pride and come back next stream and tell you and like recommend it or like review it or something. Finlay says when talking about making movies that like a broader demographic can associate to, says that is true. Asian people should be the dominating force in mainstream films. If you use my train of thought, yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, someone joined us. Catherine. Catherine says, greetings from Orlando, Florida. Humans reach to find meaning in their lives. The purpose of art are humans' desire to manipulate their environments and objects. Or maybe to have an impact on their environment in manipulating the environments and their objects. I don't know. It could be. We talked about that at the beginning of stream. Now we're talking about the heterosexual agenda in movies, how they're making movies straight and trying to push it on us. James Harris says, love your content. Hey James, thank you very much. Adam says, if not movies or video games, do you have a favorite art medium? Aside from like painting and drawing, which obviously I make videos on and like I'm really into. Like I said earlier, I'm into writing. I'm not into writing, I'm into reading. I worked in a bookstore for like a long time, unionized it. We talked about that. And the art medium, and I think that influences the way I write and how I like writing. So I do like engaging with writing as an art form. I don't know if I have a favorite one. I don't know if they're that divisible or like, you know, categorized like that. Yeah, Catherine says, look again at the cave drawings and paintings, early expressions of what humans saw. Yeah. Well, we talked about how art does change from like in different epochs, and how because of that, I believe that we should maybe redefine art in the 21st century with our new context. So, for example, cave drawings and paintings were done with a very specific goal in mind. It's hard to say because it was done like thousands of years ago, but often it had like it's thought to be related to to almost like a mystic, or like a not religious but like not spiritual, but like this kind of mystic purpose to it, to like to either help hunting or like thank the world for their hunt or whatever. And that was art back then. That's not art today, far from it. And then we talked about the more like, so there was more like of I'll call it mystical for the sake of my explanation. But then like in the Middle Ages, we talked about how art was more utilitarian, and how in terms of architecture, in terms of religious paintings were very, very often religious, and artists didn't even sign their paintings, right? They were artists were like craftsmen, just like any other, and art was more of a utilitarian thing. And then that changed later on with the Renaissance in French, and then the definitions of art changed. Eventually, art for art's sake became very popular, saying we don't need to have didactic art. We don't need art that communicates or educates. We just want art for ourselves, for us to just have fun. It's like a more freeing thing. And then flash forward to today, where my criticism of it is that art can be pretty much anything to our standards, and because of that, it kind of devalues the notion of art, and people engage with art like with this devalued notion, in the sense that everything is art now. So this interaction with art has become robbed of its significance and meaning. Yeah, Sandra asks, "Oh, you unionized your bookstore? That's cool." Yeah, I did with the ballet, the mod, and my partner, and other people. Of course, you don't unionize alone. But yeah, we did that. I talked a bit about it. Maybe I can expand on it eventually in another stream because it's getting late. But I talked about it, and I'll make it a segment if you want to watch it. Edited segments, you can watch it on my second channel, which is in the description, and which I will show right now, because I want to plug it, and it might be relevant to you. Let me show you. There you go. It'll be posted here. These videos, probably, maybe not here, but in a couple more videos, while we talk about my experience, short experience of unionizing my bookstore. El Technopada says, I prefer more narrative art mediums, but painting and drawing are also very cool. Yeah, you can have narratives in painting and drawing, but yeah, no, I understand what you mean, for sure. Gatsby is Dead asks favorite book and author. I could not tell. It has been fluctuating so much as I've been reading. Every time I pick up a book, oh, that's my new favorite book. But it's like it's very hard to put books like it's like favorite paintings. Like paintings are great for different reasons, right? Like The Stranger by Camus was like my favorite painting for a very long time, just because it was so instrumental in like me being a teenager, I guess, and growing up in this world. I don't know. There's just so many of them. At one point, it was Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, just because I thought it was so poignant, and it read. Well, you could read sociologically into it so much, even though it was a fiction novel. There was Gatsby is Dead. His username is a spoiler. Yeah, and anyway, there's some there's a book, a French book. I don't even know if it's available in French. Begbede, 5 francs. I think it's. I don't even remember what the 99 francs. This book, if it can open, yeah. 5,90 euros, 99 francs. This book, very critical of capitalism, but through a narrative thing. That became a favorite book for when I was reading it, so it's always changing. Oh, Sandra says, oh, other channels. Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of channels. I have the first one, Canvas. Second one, Germinal, which is like segments of the stream that I want to do more and more often. Third one is an anarchist FAQ, where I narrate an anarchist FAQ, where every video is like usually like between 5 and 10 minute responses to frequently asked questions on anarchism. I didn't write them. It's from like a document from the 90s, but it's very, very important. I thought I would like to make it accessible. Look for the black, white, and red thumbnail. I hope you like it, Natai. Yeah. It's I try to make it like different, so it's easily identifiable, I guess. Oh, Technopada again with the €5. You've been very generous. Thank you. Before going to bed, do you have a Discord server to join? If not, it would be so cool. I know. You're not the first one to ask. I will make one, and I will do my best to hang out in there and maybe have conversations with you guys. And not only would that be cool, but maybe eventually I could use that Discord server to have people on and discuss about things. Maybe not the whole stream, but like, little questions in person, and have conversations about that. I'm just afraid of people saying the N-word on stream. But that might happen eventually. Discord server, eventually. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just very busy right now, but it'll be fun to do. Flamingo asking, do I speak French? I do. Oui. Oh, Gatsby is Dead. Read The Stranger. Yeah, it's haven't read it in a very long time, but yeah, it was pretty influential for me when I was young. I should reread it and see if it holds up. Yeah, company potluck. I'm not sure you mean what you mean by the favorites concept. I'd love to answer your question, but I read it and I wasn't sure. What's your first language? English or French? And which one? In which you like more? French is my first language. I prefer speaking in French because it's more natural to me to speak in French. Because English, I was even uncomfortable speaking in English in 2020 or 2019, and I wasn't that comfortable with speaking English. And I did all my studies in French. I didn't study in English at all, so everything I studied was in French. And that's that's why, like, in my video on Mondrian, I say Mondrian, because in French we say Mondrian, and so many people got angry at me for saying Mondrian as if he was French while he was Dutch, so it's pronounced Mondrian. It's because I studied him in French, and it's Mondrian in French. But I do prefer English for writing. That's something that's probably the only place I like English for. It's a very concise language. It's easier to write for me in English than in French. Less spelling mistake, like possibilities in English. It's harder to write in French. Discord has a built-in Q&A feature where a host can bring people in to talk. I didn't know that, Natai. Like, that's the thing. You guys, these people and their tech stuff. Technopada says, I can't wait to have a discussion on Sonic CD. It's the best video game. I don't know if it's going to be much of a conversation. I haven't played the game. One day, when I run out of things to say, I will become a game streamer, and I will play Sonic CD for everyone to enjoy. And good night, El Technopada. Oh, Ethan, you missed it. Segments of it will be on my second channel. If not, you can watch the whole stream again. I mean, it's not as fun, of course, but it was an interesting one. Talked about how trans women are actually women. Controversial opinion, I guess. Paige asks, did you go to McGill? No, I didn't study in English. I only studied in French. I did not go to McGill. I went to l'UQAM, Université du Québec à Montréal, which is far, far, far less prestigious. Very hippie university. It can be. Talks about compliments my hair. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anna says, your English is incredible. Thank you. Yeah, your English sounds so natural. I couldn't tell. I went to English actually 2 years when I was young, grade 4 and grade 5. And I was bullied for speaking English. So that's why I work very, very hard to not have an accent. Because I would be bullied for having an accent. So there's a lot of effort being put here. I hope you guys recognize that and acknowledge it. Yeah, Robin Marks says he's Canadian. He had to learn English and French. Well, I'm from Quebec, so we learn French mostly by default, and English is kind of, the education in English here is it's so. I was lucky enough to have one side of my family that spoke English, but even then I didn't speak that much English. Yeah, English has also corrupted you, eh? YPPAH. We're both in this together. Carrie says, "Oh, what I walk in on." So does art need a purpose? Oh, we talked about that a while ago. We talked about a couple of things. Art history major in McGill, Paige. Really? That's interesting. Are you from Montreal? Antonio Morales asks, do you believe in the 5-second rule? Is that when you drop something on the floor and you have to pick it up after 5 seconds, or else it's ruined. Wasn't it like proven by the Mythbusters or something? But no, I don't believe in it. No. It was a joke. Yeah, the Sonic thing was a joke. Maybe we can have that discussion once I play it. As a joke. Alright, good night, El Technopada. Yeah, Robin Mark says, see, he says grade 5 and not 5th grade. See? That betrays me. Yeah, yeah, Flamingo. Like that's one of the problems. I don't want to start speaking French, and then people will be confused. They'll think that they'll be tuning in. They tuned in to like a French stream, and I would not put it on them for leaving a French stream. I would not want to be in a French stream. Ipa is the nickname. Oh, Carrie, hi from Australia. A bit late to the party, but it's fine. Like I said, well, it's coming to an end there because we've been live for like 3 hours and 30 minutes, which is the longest live I've had. I love doing these, just hanging out. But yeah, we're gonna put an end to it soon. But yeah, like I said, second channel, it's in the description. I put segments of the live, so you'd have to watch the whole thing. The highlights will be there. Oh, that's a really nice comment. Thank you, Company Potluck. Good night. Imagine you're going to bed. Dianzon Jairus says, any recommendation for anarchist books or writers, entry-level stuff only? I do have one. It's called Anarchy by Malatesta. And Anarchy by Malatesta, I wrote a guide to that little pamphlet. It's very short. It's worth reading, but I wrote not a guide, but a companion to it, in the sense that you can read one chapter and then you can watch the video on that chapter to follow up. And I wrote it and I recorded it a long time ago for Germinal, my second channel. And I unlisted it because it was kind of embarrassing. Not only because I'm a lot younger, but I'm not that comfortable in front of the camera. So I was thinking of re-recording that video as one video and putting it up on the canvas, perhaps. Because it's probably not going to be about art history exclusively anymore. It might fluctuate from time to time. Like Propaganda video wasn't about art history, let's be honest with ourselves. But it still did pretty good. So I think we're gonna fluctuate between art history and whatever the fuck I want. And Anarchy by Enrico Malatesta will be one of them. If you want to wait on that, maybe in 2 weeks, we'll see. But it's something I would like to do. You're so still when you read. Yeah, I'm very concentrated when I read. I always wonder if the stream is frozen. Maybe I should have like a moving element in my background just to show that it's not frozen. Like a pendulum or something. Carrie says, is it on Audible? Anarchy by Malatesta? It's probably not, but there's like we're gonna recommend so many different YouTube channels. There's Audible Anarchist that does a lot of audiobooks with anarchist. This guy, and I imagine Anarchy by Malatesta is there. Yeah, part 1, part 2. And they do audiobooks for free. Absolutely free. We'll be honest, like, if we're honest, like anarchists are not that much into copyrights, into anything that's, yeah. Always new chapters, new texts, and things like that. A very helpful resource if you're if you want an introduction to anarchism, or if you just want to get into more anarchist theory. Yeah, Chomsky's a good way as well. Maybe he's a bit more known, so it might be a good way to get introduced by it. Mutual Aid by Kropotkin is one. It's a bit more like a evolutionary science. I like Conquest of Bread. Is there a reason, Paige, that you go with Mutual Aid over Conquest of Bread for Kropotkin? Harry says, keen to hear thoughts on games later. Doesn't seem like there's a huge art interpretation community around it compared to movies or something online. That is absolutely true. I know. I was talking about that earlier, but like Red Dead Redemption 2, like I want to make a video about it, but like I don't want to play through it only once, right? I would have to do it 2 or 3 times if I want like a deep understanding of the story. But it takes so long to complete. I don't know. It's like it would be so much work. But it would be so much fun as well. It would be so much work too, and I don't know how much it would work. Hey, I think that's my second member, El Tecnopada. I enabled members on YouTube just because like it's a good way for people to support and like, you know, be like a recurring thing, maybe like building a community. But there's nothing much to it, but I mean it does like help, it does support me, but I never like talked about it or whatever, so it's funny to see that someone became a member. Thank you El Technopod. Company potluck. When we get to the Discord, maybe you can have a book club. Yes, I would like a book club, and also help me to force me to read. Sometimes we need that little push. The Discord is going to be done, all right? There's been a lot of asking, and I think it's a really good idea. It's just like, I'm happy to see that there's enthusiasm for it. It's giving us good reasons to start it. Oh, FT, I'm so happy. Starting reading through Capitalist Realism. Thanks to your recommendation. Loving it so far. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's such a great book, and it's often quoted. So I'm obviously not the first one to quote it, sir. So, So, it's good to read it just because you'll see it appear in other, not only in other media, but also in other like books itself, like books in themselves. Company potluck. What is it called again? The channel? I'm trying to leave, I swear. It's Audible Anarchist. Oh, Bali already took care of that. I'm super late. I'm sorry. I have not read The Fourth Turning. I don't know what that is, Carrie. Oh, Paige says Conquest of Bread is good too. Natai says stream yourself playing. Probably just after I do the reaction stream. All right, friends. So it's been like almost like 4 hours. So we're gonna take a little, not a break. We're actually gonna end the stream. But thank you so much for joining. It was a really fun really, really fun time. I'm sad that the chat still like didn't work. Sadly, it doesn't seem to work at all now. But yeah, no, it doesn't seem to be working at all. But it's fine. Maybe I'll have some. See, now it's being brought up again. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for your contributions to these conversations. It was amazing. Maybe next Sunday already. So instead of being in 2 weeks, it might be in the next week if I can complete my video quickly. I'll make a video now on next Sunday, and we can stream again. Maybe by then we'll have a Discord server, and maybe by then I'll have watched some of your recommendations so I can review them. Be kind of fun. And the some segments will be on Germinal this week, so you can look out for that. And if there is Discord, follow me on Instagram. Instagram, I think, is also in the. So we'll put on Instagram that the Discord is out. Probably put it on the community tab on YouTube as well. We'll do that there so that you guys can join. Art is like a horror film. Robin, you can message me on Instagram tomorrow. Just so for the donations, you've given a lot of money. Thank you. I just want to make sure that you actually want to give that money and you're not in a bad place. Thank you everyone. Thank you for a lot of donations as well. A lot of great contributions to messages. Happy you enjoyed the channel. Happy you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and thanks, Bally, as always. Thanks, Bally, for your incredible job. Really fun to enjoy. Thank you all. Good night.